Victoria Hale stood frozen at her daughter's grave, her $1,000 heels sinking into morning dew. But she wasn't alone. A janitor knelt before the headstone, weeping openly, while a small girl with impossibly familiar sapphire eyes placed wildflowers on the granite. When the child looked up, Victoria's world shattered. Those eyes, Leah's eyes, stared back at her from a face she'd never seen before. "Grandma?" the girl whispered. The word hit Victoria like a freight train. She had a granddaughter, and she'd never known. Stay with me until the end of this story, and please comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this tale has traveled. The morning of October 12th arrived the way it always did, cold, gray, and heavy with ghosts. Victoria Hale sat in the back of her black Mercedes S-Class, watching the city blur past through tinted windows. Her driver, James, knew better than to speak on this particular day. He'd worked for her for 15 years, long enough to recognize the tight set of her jaw, the way her fingers gripped her Hermes clutch like a lifeline, the distant look in her steel-gray eyes that said she was already somewhere else entirely. Greenwood Cemetery spread across the hillside like a peaceful city of the dead, its wrought iron gates opening to receive her the same way they had every year for the past decade. Victoria stepped out of the car, her Louboutins clicking against the cobblestone path with mechanical precision. She wore black. She always wore black on this day. A tailored Armani suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, but felt like prison clothes against her skin. "I'll be an hour," she told James without looking back. "Yes, ma'am." The path to Leah's grave wound through ancient oak trees that had witnessed 100 years of grief. Victoria had walked it so many times she could do it blindfolded. Past the Anderson family plot with its marble angels, past the weathered bench where she'd once found an elderly man feeding squirrels, talking to his wife's headstone about their grandchildren, past the small pond where ducks congregated, indifferent to human sorrow. Section 7, row 12, plot 3. She knew the coordinates like she knew her own social security number, but today something was different. As Victoria rounded the final bend, she heard something that didn't belong in this sanctuary of silence. The sound of crying, not the quiet, dignified tears of someone paying respects, but genuine, gut-wrenching sobs that spoke of fresh pain, not decade-old grief. She slowed her pace, her business instincts immediately shifting into alert mode. In her world, unexpected variables meant danger. Control meant survival. When Leah's grave came into view, Victoria stopped so abruptly she nearly lost her balance. A man knelt before her daughter's headstone. He wore a janitor's uniform, navy blue coveralls with a patch that read Riverside Community Center, and his shoulders shook with the kind of crying that came from somewhere deep and raw. His hands were pressed against the granite marker, and his head was bowed as if in prayer. But it wasn't just the man. Beside him, a small girl stood arranging stones and wildflowers at the base of the grave. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and wearing a purple jacket that had clearly been patched and repatched with care. She hummed softly to herself as she worked, completely absorbed in her task, placing each stone and flower with deliberate tenderness. Victoria's first instinct was anger. This was her grief, her daughter, her private place of mourning. Who were these people? What gave them the right to... The girl looked up. Time stopped. The world tilted on its axis, and Victoria felt the ground dissolve beneath her feet. The child's eyes, dear God, her eyes, were the exact shade of sapphire blue that Victoria saw every time she closed her own eyes. Deep, vivid blue with flecks of gold around the pupils. Leah's eyes. Eyes that Victoria would recognize anywhere, anytime, under any circumstances. Eyes that had looked up at her from a hospital bassinet 33 years ago. Eyes that had sparkled with laughter at Christmas mornings and hardened with defiance during their last terrible argument. Eyes that should have been buried in this ground for 10 years, but here they were, staring at Victoria from a small, living face. The girl tilted her head, studying Victoria with the unselfconscious curiosity of childhood. "Are you the lady?" she asked, her voice clear and sweet. "Theo Michael said a lady comes here sometimes. A sad lady in fancy clothes." Victoria opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her throat had closed completely. The man, Michael, looked up sharply. When he saw Victoria standing there, his face went pale. He scrambled to his feet, one hand instinctively moving to the girl's shoulder in a protective gesture. "Victoria," he said, and his voice cracked on her name. We didn't think you'd come so early. You usually come at noon." He'd been watching her, tracking her visits, deliberately avoiding her. "Who are you?" Victoria finally managed, though her voice sounded strange and distant to her own ears. "Who is this child?" Michael's hand tightened on the girl's shoulder. His eyes, dark brown and exhausted, with deep circles underneath that spoke of sleepless nights, met Victoria's with something that looked like fear and resignation mixed together. "My name is Michael Torres," he said slowly. "I was Daniel's best friend. And this—" He paused, taking a deep breath that seemed to require every ounce of courage he possessed. "This is Elena, Leah's daughter." The words hit Victoria like physical blows. Leah's daughter, Leah's daughter. Her daughter had a daughter. "That's impossible," Victoria heard herself say, but even as the words left her mouth, she was looking at the child, at Elena, and seeing the undeniable truth written in every feature, the curve of her cheekbones, the shape of her chin, the way she bit her lower lip nervously, exactly the way Leah used to do. "Leah never had a child," Victoria continued, her voice rising. "She died in that accident when she was 23. She was studying architecture in Seattle. She wasn't even seeing anyone seriously. There was no pregnancy, no baby, no—" "She was pregnant," Michael interrupted quietly. "She gave birth to Elena 2 months before the accident, before she came home to try to tell you." The cemetery spun. Victoria's knees buckled, and she grabbed onto a nearby headstone for support. The granite was cold and solid beneath her palm, real, tangible, grounding. "You're lying," she whispered. "This is some kind of scam. You saw my name, you did research, you found a child who looks like—" "I'm not lying." Michael's voice was gentle but firm. "And I'm not here for money. I didn't even want you to know about Elena until she was older, until I could figure out how to explain who you were." "What happened?" Elena tugged on Michael's coveralls. "Tio, why is the lady angry?" "She's not angry, mija," Michael said softly, kneeling down to the child's level. "She's just surprised. This is your grandmother." "My grandmother?" Elena's eyes went wide. She looked at Victoria with renewed interest, but also uncertainty. "The one from the letter?" "Yes, sweet girl, the one from the letter." Victoria felt like she was drowning. "What letter? What are you talking about? I demand an explanation right now, or I'm calling security." Michael stood up slowly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope, yellowed with age, worn soft at the edges from being handled many times. He held it out to Victoria with a hand that trembled slightly. "Leah wrote this a week before she died," he said. "She was planning to mail it, but she wanted to wait until after she talked to you in person. She never got the chance." Victoria stared at the envelope like it was a snake. Her name was written across the front in handwriting she would have recognized anywhere. Leah's handwriting, looping and artistic, with the capital V turned into a little flourish. "I don't understand," Victoria said, but she took the letter. Her hands were shaking so badly she nearly dropped it. "None of this makes sense. Leah would have told me if she was pregnant. We talked every week. But even as she said it, Victoria knew it wasn't true. They hadn't really talked. Victoria had talked at Leah during their weekly phone calls, filling the space with updates about the company, questions about grades and career plans, barely pausing for answers. And Leah had grown quieter and quieter, until their conversations became perfunctory exchanges that left Victoria feeling vaguely dissatisfied but too busy to examine why. "She tried to tell you," Michael said quietly. "Multiple times. But you were always on your way to a meeting or about to board a plane. And she was scared." "Scared? Of what? I'm her mother. Would you have accepted Daniel?" Michael's question was soft but cut like a knife. "A carpenter from Brooklyn who never went to college? A man who made Leah laugh but couldn't offer her the life you'd planned for her?" Victoria's silence was answer enough. Michael sighed. "Leah loved him, more than I've ever seen anyone love anyone, and he loved her back the same way. They were happy, Victoria. Really, truly happy. The kind of happy that doesn't need permission or approval." Then where is he? Victoria demanded, her voice sharp with defensive anger. If he loved her so much, where is this Daniel now? Why aren't you with your father? She asked Elena directly. The girl's face crumpled. Papa went to heaven, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Same as Mama. Victoria felt like she'd been slapped. Michael pulled Elena close. Daniel raised Elena alone for 3 years after Leah died. He was a good father, the best. But there was a construction accident, a scaffolding collapse on a site in Queens. He was killed instantly. And you took her, Victoria said, piecing it together. I'm her godfather. It's what Daniel wanted, what Leah wanted. Michael's jaw set stubbornly. I know I'm not rich. I know I can't give her piano lessons or private schools or whatever you think she needs. But I love her. I take care of her. She's safe and happy. Victoria looked at the man in front of her, really looked at him for the first time. He couldn't have been more than 35, but he looked older, worn down by responsibility and grief and probably financial stress. His coveralls were clean but faded from countless washings. His shoes had been resoled. He had the rough hands of someone who worked hard for every dollar. But when he looked at Elena, his whole face transformed with undisguised love. I don't know you, Victoria said, and she hated how vulnerable her voice sounded. I don't know anything about you. Why should I believe any of this? Because of her eyes, Michael said simply. Because you looked at Elena and you knew, immediately, whose child she is. Blood doesn't lie, Victoria. It was true. Victoria's gaze kept being pulled back to Elena, to those impossible sapphire eyes that were windows to a past she'd thought was buried and gone. Read the letter, Michael said. Then, if you want to walk away, we'll never bother you again. We'll disappear, and you can keep coming here every year and mourning the daughter you think you knew. Or, he paused, his voice dropping even lower. Or you can meet your granddaughter, really meet her, not as a mistake or a surprise, but as the living proof that Leah's life wasn't wasted, that she left something beautiful behind. Elena was watching Victoria now with those devastating eyes. Are you really my grandma? She asked again. Tio Michael says my mama looked just like you when she smiled, but he says you don't smile very much anymore. Victoria felt something crack inside her chest. When was the last time she'd smiled? Really smiled, not the corporate smile she wore to board meetings and charity galas. She couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't find words for the storm of emotions tearing through her. Instead, she looked down at the letter in her hands. The paper was soft, fragile. She could rip it up right now. Throw the pieces in the air and walk away. Pretend this had never happened. Return to her controlled, ordered, pain-managed life. But her fingers were already sliding under the envelope flap. Elena, mija, let's go sit by that tree, Michael said gently, guiding the girl away. Let's give the lady some privacy. Will she want to be my grandma? Elena asked as they walked. I don't know, sweet girl. We'll have to wait and see. Victoria barely heard them. She'd pulled the letter out, 3 pages, covered front and back in Leah's handwriting. The date at the top was July 28th, almost exactly 2 months before her death. Dear Mom, I've started this letter 27 times. Each time I get 3 sentences in and realize I have no idea how to say what I need to say. How do you tell your mother, the woman who built an empire, who never met a challenge she couldn't conquer, that her daughter fell in love with exactly the kind of man she always warned me against? His name is Daniel Ruiz. He's a carpenter. He builds things with his hands, beautiful things, practical things. He built the crib our daughter sleeps in. Yes, Mom, I have a daughter. Her name is Elena Victoria Ruiz, and she just turned 2 months old, and she has your eyes. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I threw away my education, my future, my potential. You're thinking about the architecture degree I didn't finish, the internships at prestigious firms I turned down. You're thinking I'm making the same mistake you always feared I'd make. But here's what you don't know. Daniel makes me laugh, real laughs, not the polite kind I learned to do at your charity dinners. He sees me. Not my last name, not my trust fund, not my potential value to Hale Global. Just me. Leah, the girl who likes to draw buildings on napkins and can't cook to save her life and cries at stupid commercials. He proposed to me in a park in Red Hook. There was no fancy restaurant, no quartet playing in the background. Just him, and a ring he spent 3 months saving for, and words that came straight from his heart. He said he wanted to build a life with me. Build it with his own two hands. And I said yes, Mom. I said yes because I finally understood what happiness feels like. I wanted to tell you about the pregnancy, but you were in Tokyo, then Shanghai, then Frankfurt, and every time we talked, you were between meetings or about to catch a flight. I tried, Mom. I really tried. But eventually, I realized you weren't going to slow down long enough to hear me, so I'm writing this letter instead. And I'm going to put it in the mail, and then I'm going to drive home to Greenwood and tell you everything in person. I'm bringing Elena with me. She should meet her grandmother, and Daniel will come too, if you'll agree to meet him, to give him a chance. I know he's not what you wanted for me. He doesn't have an MBA or a portfolio or connections in high places, but he has character, Mom, integrity, kindness, all the things you taught me to value but somehow forgot to prioritize when you were building your empire. I'm not angry at you. I want you to know that. I'm not writing this as some kind of rebellion or judgment. I miss you, Mom. Not CEO Victoria Hale, not the woman whose photo appears in Forbes and Wall Street Journal. Just you, my mom, the woman who used to let me fall asleep in her lap while she read quarterly reports, the woman who taught me that the most important thing in life was to build something that lasts. Well, I built something that lasts. I built a family, and I want you to be part of it. Elena has your eyes and your stubborn chin. She grabs my finger with this fierce grip, like she's already ready to take on the world. You'd love her, Mom, if you just give yourself permission to. I'll be home on October 15th, Saturday afternoon. I'll come to the house. And I'm hoping, God, I'm hoping so hard that you'll open the door, that you'll look at your granddaughter, that you'll see what I see, a chance to do things differently, to not let work consume everything, to remember that all the money and power in the world doesn't mean anything if you don't have people to share it with. I love you, Mom. I always have, even when you made it hard, even when your priorities hurt. I love you. Please don't let fear keep you from knowing Elena. She's already the best thing I've ever done, and she deserves to know her grandmother. The real you, not the polished version in designer suits. Love always, Leah, P.S. Elena laughed for the first time yesterday, a real belly-shaking baby laugh. Daniel made funny faces for 20 minutes straight to keep it going. I wish you could have been there. I wish you could be here for all of it. The letter fell from Victoria's hands. October 15th, Saturday afternoon. That had been the day of the emergency board meeting. The merger with Kensington Industries that Victoria had been negotiating for 8 months was about to fall through. She'd spent 18 hours at the office, fielding calls, revising contracts, threatening lawsuits. Leah had never showed up. Victoria remembered being briefly annoyed. Leah had called and said she was coming home, but then there was radio silence. Victoria had been too busy to follow up, too consumed with saving the merger to wonder why her daughter hadn't arrived. The accident had happened on October 14th, late evening. Leah's car had skidded on a rain-slicked highway outside of Greenwood. She'd died instantly, they said. No suffering. She'd been coming home to introduce Victoria to her granddaughter. And Victoria had been too busy to even notice she was missing until the police knocked on her door at midnight with the news that shattered her world. The grief that Victoria had kept locked away for 10 years came roaring up like a tidal wave. She made a sound, something between a sob and a gasp, and her knees finally gave out completely. She collapsed onto the grass in front of Leah's grave, her expensive suit forgotten, her carefully constructed composure demolished. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the headstone. "Oh God, Leah, I'm so sorry. You were trying to tell me. You were trying to come home, and I was too busy. I was too—" Small arms wrapped around her neck. Victoria looked up through tears to find Elena hugging her, the child's thin arms surprisingly strong. "Don't cry, Grandma," Elena said softly. "Theo Michael says crying means you love somebody very much. He says it's okay to be sad about my mama. I get sad too sometimes. But then I remember she's watching from heaven, and that makes it a little better." Victoria couldn't speak. She could only hold on to this small, precious child, this piece of Leah she'd never known existed, and weep for everything she'd lost, for the daughter who'd tried to reach her, for the years with Elena she'd already missed, for the family that had been stolen by her own blindness and arrogance. Michael stood a few feet away, giving them space but watching carefully. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were suspiciously bright. "She looks like Leah when she sleeps," he said quietly. "Daniel used to say it was like having a piece of her back. I didn't understand what he meant until after he died, when I'd watch Elena sleeping and see Leah's face in hers." Victoria pulled back slightly, framing Elena's face with her hands. Yes, she could see it. The shape of her nose, the arch of her eyebrows, the curve of her smile when she offered a shy, tentative grin. "How old are you?" Victoria asked, her voice rough. 7 3/4, Elena said proudly. "Almost 8. My birthday is May 20th. Tio Michael says that's the day spring finally decided to show up the year I was born." May 20th. Victoria had spent that day, like every day, in her office. "What's your favorite color?" It was an inane question, but Victoria's brain was struggling to function. Purple, and also yellow, and sometimes green, but only the really bright kind, not the dark kind. Favorite food? Tio Michael's rice and beans, and ice cream, chocolate ice cream with rainbow sprinkles. Favorite book? Elena's face lit up. Charlotte's Web. Have you read it? It's about this pig named Wilbur and a spider named Charlotte, and Charlotte writes messages in her web to save Wilbur's life. Tio Michael reads it to me before bed. We've read it 5 times already. Victoria's heart clenched. Your mother loved that book. I used to read it to her when she was your age. Really? Elena's eyes went wide. Did she cry at the end too? Because I always cry when Charlotte dies, even though I know it's coming. Tio Michael says it's okay to cry at books. She cried every single time, Victoria said, and managed a watery smile. Even when she got older. Even when she could recite the whole thing from memory. Michael cleared his throat. Victoria, I know this is overwhelming. We should probably give you some space. Elena and I can... No, Victoria said sharply, then softened her tone. Please, don't go yet. I have questions. So many questions. Michael and Elena exchanged a look. The girl nodded solemnly, and Michael sighed. Okay, we can talk. But maybe not here? Elena gets cold easily, and it's getting chilly. Victoria looked around the cemetery as if seeing it for the first time. The morning had warmed slightly, but clouds were rolling in, promising rain later. My car, she said, standing up on wobbly legs. We can sit in my car. It's warm. And private. They walked together to where James waited by the Mercedes. His eyes widened when he saw Victoria, red-eyed, her makeup ruined, grass stains on her knees, but he was too professional to comment. James, please give us some privacy, Victoria said. Take a walk. Come back in an hour. Of course, ma'am. The 3 of them settled into the back seat, Michael and Elena on one side, Victoria on the other, with what felt like a canyon of leather upholstery between them. Tell me everything, Victoria said. From the beginning. How did Leah meet Daniel? And Michael told her. About the coffee shop in Park Slope where Leah had been sketching building designs and spilled her latte all over Daniel's work plans. About how he'd laughed instead of getting angry, and they'd spent 2 hours talking while he redrew everything from memory. About their first date at a tiny Italian restaurant where the owner's grandmother cooked and Daniel knew everyone by name. About the way Leah had called Michael one night, breathless with joy, saying she'd met someone who made her feel like she could be herself. Completely, totally herself, without apology. Daniel was a good man, Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. The best man I've ever known. He worked hard. He was honest. He treated Leah like she was the most precious thing in the world, which, to him, she was. Why didn't she tell me? Victoria asked. Why hide it? Michael looked uncomfortable. She wasn't hiding it exactly. She was waiting for the right time. But every time she tried to bring it up, you'd change the subject to her studies or her career prospects. And when she got pregnant, he glanced at Elena, choosing his words carefully. She knew you'd have opinions, strong opinions. She wanted to be strong enough to weather them first. Victoria felt the accusation in his words, even though his tone was gentle. And after she died? Victoria pressed. Why didn't Daniel contact me then? Surely I had a right to know about my granddaughter. Michael's jaw tightened. He tried. Once. He called your office about 3 months after Leah's funeral. He was struggling, grief-stricken, dealing with an infant alone. He managed to get through to your assistant. He explained who he was, asked if there was any way to speak with you. Victoria's stomach dropped. I never got that message. Your assistant told him you were in no condition to be bothered with claims from random men, that if he had legitimate business with Hale Global, he should contact the legal department. Daniel hung up and never called back. Who? Victoria's voice was sharp. Which assistant? Does it matter? He's gone now, Victoria. Daniel's gone. He raised Elena alone for 3 years, working 2 jobs to make ends meet, singing her to sleep every night with the same songs Leah used to sing. He was an incredible father. And then he died in an accident that could have been prevented if the construction company had followed proper safety protocols. I would have helped, Victoria said desperately. If I'd known, I would have... Would you? Michael asked quietly. Really? Or would you have tried to take Elena away from the only father she'd ever known? Would you have judged Daniel the way you would have judged him if Leah had lived long enough to introduce you? Victoria had no answer to that. She honestly didn't know what she would have done. After Daniel died, I became Elena's legal guardian, Michael continued. I'm a janitor at Riverside Community Center. I make barely enough to cover our rent and food. But we manage. Elena goes to public school. She has friends. She's happy. I wasn't going to reach out to you and risk losing her to some custody battle I couldn't possibly win. Then why today? Victoria asked. Why bring her to the cemetery? Michael's expression softened. Because Elena started asking questions about her grandmother. About you. She found one of Leah's old photo albums, and there were pictures of you and Leah together when she was little. Elena wanted to know why she'd never met you. And he ran a hand through his hair. I couldn't keep lying to her, so I told her the truth, that you didn't know she existed, that her mama died before she could tell you. And I wanted to see, Elena piped up. Tio Michael brings me to visit Mama's grave every month. He says it's important to remember people who loved us. So today, I wanted to see if the sad lady in fancy clothes would come. And you did. She said it with such innocent excitement, as if Victoria's arrival was a wonderful surprise instead of a collision of worlds. I bring flowers, Elena continued. See, we picked them from Mrs. Chen's garden. She's our neighbor, and she lets me pick flowers as long as I ask first. Do you bring flowers for Mama too? Victoria realized with a stab of shame that she never brought flowers. She came. She stood. She mourned. She left. She'd never thought to bring anything tangible, any offering of love. No, she admitted quietly. I don't. That's okay, Elena said generously. You can share mine. And just like that, Victoria felt something in her chest crack open, something that had been locked tight for a decade. Elena, she said carefully, would you like to have lunch with me sometime? Maybe this week? The girl looked to Michael for permission. He hesitated, clearly torn. Please, Victoria added, and she wasn't above begging, not for this. I'm not trying to take her from you. I need to know her. I need to not have lost everything. Michael studied her for a long moment. Then slowly, he nodded. Lunch. In a public place, and I come with her. Of course. And if at any point she wants to leave, we leave. No questions. Agreed. Okay then. Michael pulled out a phone, an old model, probably prepaid, and they exchanged numbers with the formality of 2 nations negotiating a treaty. As they climbed out of the car, Elena reached up and took Victoria's hand. The small fingers were sticky with something, probably candy, and warm and utterly trusting. I'm glad I met you, Grandma, she said. Tio Michael was worried you'd be mean, but you're not mean. You're just sad. That's different. Victoria looked down at this wise, strange, perfect child. Yes, she whispered. That's exactly right. I'm just sad. But maybe, she thought as she watched Michael and Elena walk away, hands swinging between them, maybe she didn't have to be sad forever. Maybe Leah had left her one final gift, a chance at redemption, a chance to finally get it right. Victoria sat in her office on the 47th floor of Hale Global headquarters, staring at her phone like it was a live grenade. 3 days had passed since the cemetery, and she'd picked up the device at least 50 times, only to set it back down without calling. What did you say to a 7-year-old granddaughter you'd never known existed? How did you bridge a gap that wide? Her assistant Margaret knocked softly before entering. Mrs. Hale, the Singapore team is waiting for your call. They've been holding for 10 minutes. Cancel it, Victoria said without looking up. Margaret's eyebrows shot up. In 15 years of working together, Victoria had never canceled a call. Ma'am, this is the Tanaka deal. You've been working on it for... I said cancel it, Margaret. Reschedule for tomorrow. Of course. Margaret retreated quickly, clearly alarmed. Victoria finally forced herself to dial Michael's number. He answered on the third ring, slightly out of breath. Hello? It's Victoria. Victoria Hale. Is this a good time? There was a pause, then what sounded like a door closing. Yeah, hold on, I'm at work. Let me step outside. She heard traffic noise, the distant sound of a siren. Okay, Michael said. I can talk now. What's up? What's up? As if they were old friends catching up, not two strangers bound together by grief and a child. I'd like to have that lunch, Victoria said. With Elena, tomorrow if possible, Saturday. Tomorrow? Michael sounded surprised. That's fast. I've already waited 7 years too long. I don't want to waste any more time. Another pause. Victoria could almost hear him thinking, weighing, deciding whether to trust her. Okay, he said finally, but somewhere casual. Elena gets uncomfortable in fancy restaurants. There's a diner in Brooklyn, near our place, Lou's Kitchen. You know it? Victoria, who hadn't set foot in a diner in probably 20 years, said, I'll find it. What time? Noon. And Victoria, dress normal, please. Elena's already nervous about this. Normal, Victoria repeated, looking down at her Chanel suit. Right. After they hung up, she sat for a long moment. Then she did something she hadn't done in years. She left work early. The next morning, Victoria stood in her walk-in closet, a space the size of most people's bedrooms, filled with designer clothes, organized by color and season, and realized she had absolutely nothing normal to wear. Everything was designer. Everything was expensive. Everything screamed corporate power or old money elegance. Finally, she settled on a pair of dark jeans she'd bought 2 years ago for a photo shoot and never worn, paired with a simple cashmere sweater. She stared at herself in the mirror. Without the armor of her suits, she looked smaller somehow, older, more vulnerable. She left her jewelry in the safe except for the simple gold chain Leah had given her for her 40th birthday, the one that said, Mom, in delicate script. James drove her to Brooklyn, navigating through neighborhoods that grew progressively less polished as they traveled. The buildings here were brick and concrete, covered in graffiti that ranged from vandalism to genuine art. Corner stores had signs in Spanish and Arabic. Kids played on stoops, and old men sat on folding chairs arguing about baseball. Lou's Kitchen was wedged between a laundromat and a bodega, its faded sign promising best breakfast in Brooklyn. Through the smudged windows, Victoria could see red vinyl booths and a counter where a massive man with tattoos covering both arms flipped eggs on a griddle. Michael and Elena were already there, sitting in a booth near the back. Elena wore a yellow dress that looked homemade, carefully pressed, but with the hem let down twice. Michael had traded his janitor's uniform for jeans and a flannel shirt, but he still had that bone-tired look around his eyes. They both looked up when Victoria entered, and she saw Elena's face brighten with something that might have been hope or might have been simple curiosity. You came, Elena said as Victoria approached. Tio Michael said you might be too busy. I'll never be too busy for you, Victoria said, and meant it. She slid into the booth across from them, feeling absurdly out of place but determined not to show it. A waitress appeared, chomping gum and holding a coffee pot. You want coffee, hun? Please? What about you, sweetheart? She asked Elena. Your usual? Yes, please, with extra whipped cream. The waitress winked. You got it, baby girl. After she left, Victoria said, You come here often? Every Saturday, Michael said. It's our tradition. Elena gets her special hot chocolate and I get the breakfast special. Lou, the owner, he's good people, gave me free meals for a month after Daniel died when money was really tight. He makes the best pancakes in the whole world, Elena added solemnly. Even better than Tio Michael's, but don't tell him that. I already know, mija, Michael said with a small smile. I've accepted my defeat. Watching them together, the easy affection, the inside jokes, the way Elena leaned into Michael's side like a bird seeking shelter, Victoria felt a pang of something that might have been jealousy or might have been grief. This was what family looked like, real family, not the formal, scheduled interactions she'd had with Leah in those final years. So, Elena said, folding her hands on the table like a tiny adult. What should I call you? Tio Michael says you're my grandma, but is there a special name? My friend Jasmine calls her grandma Nana, and Marcus calls his Gigi. Victoria's throat tightened. What would you like to call me? Elena considered this seriously. What did my mama call you? She called me Mom. But before that, when she was very small, she called me Mama. What about Grandma Victoria? That way it's both. That would be perfect. The waitress returned with Elena's hot chocolate, an enormous mug topped with a mountain of whipped cream and rainbow sprinkles, and coffee for the adults. Victoria watched as Elena carefully spooned whipped cream into her mouth, savoring each bite with an expression of pure bliss. Tio Michael says you're very rich, Elena said suddenly. Is that true? Elena, Michael said, his face flushing, we talked about this. You can't just... It's all right, Victoria interrupted. Yes, I have money, quite a lot of it. How much? Elena! No, it's okay. Victoria considered how to answer. Enough that I don't have to worry about bills or groceries or rent. Enough that I could buy almost anything I want. Elena processed this, sipping her hot chocolate. But you're still sad, so money doesn't fix everything, huh? Out of the mouths of babes, Victoria thought. No, sweetheart, money doesn't fix everything. That's what Tio Michael says, too. He says the best things in life are free, like hugs and stories and watching the sunset from the roof of our building. Your uncle is a smart man. Michael looked surprised by the compliment, then guarded, as if waiting for the catch. Their food arrived, pancakes for Elena, eggs and toast for Michael, and a Greek salad for Victoria. She watched as Michael automatically cut Elena's pancakes into bite-sized pieces, poured exactly the right amount of syrup, and reminded her to eat her strawberries too, not just the pancakes. So, Grandma Victoria, Elena said between bites, do you have a job? I run a company, Hale Global. We do business all over the world. What kind of business? We invest in other companies, help them grow and become successful. Elena nodded thoughtfully. Like planting seeds and helping them grow into big trees? Victoria blinked. That's actually a perfect way to describe it. My mama wanted to build buildings, Elena said. Tio Michael has pictures of the buildings she designed. They're so pretty. She drew one that looked like a flower growing out of the ground. I remember that one, Victoria said softly. She drew it when she was 16. I still have the original sketch in my office. Really? Elena's eyes went wide. Can I see it sometime? Of course, anytime you want. They fell into a rhythm then, the conversation flowing more naturally. Elena talked about school, about her teacher Mrs. Patterson, who let her help feed the class hamster, about her best friend Zara, who could do a handstand for 30 seconds. Michael interjected occasionally, adding details or gently steering Elena away from topics he clearly felt were too personal too soon, but Victoria wanted to know everything. What books did Elena like? What was her favorite subject? Did she play any sports? What did she want to be when she grew up? The answers painted a picture of a bright, creative, loving child who had endured more loss than any 7-year-old should face, but who somehow remained luminously hopeful. I want to be a veterinarian, Elena announced. Or maybe an artist. Or maybe both. Tio Michael says I can be anything I work hard at. He's right, Victoria said, then hesitated before adding, your mother wanted to be an architect, but when she was your age, she wanted to be a marine biologist. She was obsessed with dolphins. Really? Elena practically bounced in her seat. I love dolphins. Did she ever see real ones? We went to Florida one summer. She was 9. We took a boat tour and a pod of dolphins swam right alongside us. She cried she was so happy. Michael was watching Victoria carefully, and she could read the question in his eyes. Why are you here? What do you want from us? Fair questions. She wasn't entirely sure herself. After they finished eating, Elena asked if they could go to the park. "There's one just 2 blocks away," she told Victoria. "It has the best swings, and Tio Michael pushes me really, really high. If your uncle doesn't mind, I'd love to see this park." Michael nodded slowly. "Yeah, okay, but we can't stay too long. I have to work the evening shift tonight." The park was small and worn, sandwiched between apartment buildings with laundry hanging from fire escapes. The equipment was old but well-maintained, and it was full of families, kids shrieking with laughter, parents chatting in clusters, teenagers playing basketball on a cracked court. Elena made a beeline for the swings, her yellow dress fluttering behind her. Michael followed at a more sedate pace, and Victoria walked beside him. "She likes you," Michael said quietly. "That's good. I was worried she'd be scared." "And you?" Victoria asked. "Are you still scared?" He glanced at her, then away. "Yeah, I'm terrified. You have more money than God and probably lawyers to match. If you wanted to take her from me, I couldn't stop you." "I don't want to take her from you," Victoria said. "You love her. That's obvious. And she loves you back. I'm not interested in destroying that." "Then what do you want?" Victoria watched Elena drag her feet to stop the swing, then yell for Michael to push her. "I want to know my granddaughter. I want to be part of her life. I want—" She paused, struggling to articulate something she barely understood herself. "I want to not be the sad lady in fancy clothes who shows up once a year at a grave. I want to be a real person to her, someone who matters." Michael studied her for a long moment. "That's going to take time. Trust. You can't just show up and expect to be family because of DNA." "I know. And if you hurt her, if you decide this is too much work or too uncomfortable and you bail, I will never forgive you." The threat was delivered quietly but with absolute conviction. Victoria respected him for it. "I won't bail," she said. "I already lost my daughter because I was too busy, too focused on things that didn't matter. I won't make that mistake again." They reached the swings, and Michael began pushing Elena, who squealed with delight each time she soared higher. Victoria stood to the side, watching, trying to memorize every detail. The sound of Elena's laughter, the way her hair flew behind her, the absolute trust on her face as Michael caught the swing and pushed again. "Grandma Victoria, do you want to try?" Elena called out. "It's really fun." "Oh, I don't think—" "Please, just try?" So Victoria found herself lowering herself onto the adjacent swing, feeling ridiculous and exposed. When was the last time she'd been on a swing? 40 years ago? 50? "Hold on tight," Elena instructed, "and lean back when you go forward, lean forward when you go back. That's how you go higher." Victoria pushed off tentatively, barely moving. Elena giggled. "Like this!" She demonstrated, pumping her legs with exaggerated movements. Slowly, awkwardly, Victoria began to swing higher. The ground dropped away beneath her feet, the sky opened up overhead, and for just a moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Freedom. Lightness. Joy. "You're doing it!" Elena cheered. "You're flying!" Flying. Yes, that's what it felt like. Like she'd been earthbound for decades and had suddenly remembered she had wings. When they finally stopped, both breathing hard and laughing, Elena reached over and grabbed Victoria's hand. "That was fun, wasn't it?" "It was," Victoria admitted. "It really was." They stayed at the park for another hour. Victoria pushed Elena on the swings. They played on the seesaw, Elena's slight weight barely balancing Victoria's. They drew pictures with chalk on the basketball court. Elena drew her family, herself, Michael, and Mama and Papa in heaven. And Victoria drew a wonky flower that made Elena laugh. The sun was setting when Michael finally said they needed to go. He had to get home, shower, and head to work. "Can we do this again?" Elena asked Victoria as they walked back toward Lou's kitchen where James waited with the car. "Next Saturday?" Victoria felt her heart clench. "I would love that, if it's okay with your uncle." Michael nodded, though he still looked cautious. "Yeah, same time, same place." "Actually," Victoria said carefully, "I was wondering if maybe you'd both like to come to my house next time. I have a pool and a garden and plenty of space to run around. Elena could swim, if she likes swimming." Elena's eyes went wide. "You have a pool? A real pool?" "I do." Tio Michael, can we, please? Michael's expression shuddered. I don't think that's a good idea. Not yet. Why not? Elena asked. Because he struggled to find words that wouldn't hurt or confuse her. Because we're still getting to know each other. Let's take it slow, okay, mija? Elena looked disappointed but nodded. Okay. Victoria understood. Michael didn't trust her yet. Didn't trust that she wouldn't use her wealth and power as a weapon. And given what she knew about herself, about how she'd operated in the business world for decades, she couldn't entirely blame him. Saturday at Lou's it is, she said. Same time. As she watched them walk away, Michael's hand protective on Elena's shoulder, Elena skipping every few steps, Victoria felt the weight of everything she'd lost pressed down on her like a physical force. She'd spent decades building an empire while her family crumbled around her. She'd prioritized quarterly earnings over quality time, board meetings over bedtime stories. She'd become exactly what the business world rewarded: ruthless, focused, unstoppable. And in the process, she'd lost sight of why any of it mattered. Leah had tried to tell her. In that letter, in those last desperate attempts to reach her mother, she'd laid it all out. You taught me that the most important thing in life was to build something that lasts, Leah had written. Well, I built something that lasts. I built a family. Victoria climbed into the back of her Mercedes, and James pulled smoothly into traffic. Home, ma'am? He asked. Victoria almost said yes. Then she heard herself say, No, take me to the Hale estate in Greenwood, to the house where my daughter grew up. James's eyes flickered to the rear-view mirror, surprised, but he simply nodded. Yes, ma'am. The Hale estate sat on 3 acres of prime Connecticut real estate, a sprawling colonial that Victoria had purchased when Leah was 5. After her daughter's death, Victoria couldn't bear to be there, so she'd closed it up. She had staff check on it monthly, maintain the grounds, keep it from falling into disrepair, but she hadn't set foot inside in 10 years. The gates opened at her approach, recognizing her car. The house loomed in the twilight, dark and silent and full of ghosts. Victoria let herself in, her footsteps echoing in the marble foyer. She didn't turn on the main lights, just used her phone's flashlight to navigate the familiar hallways. Leah's room was on the 2nd floor, overlooking the garden. Victoria pushed open the door and stepped into a time capsule. Everything was exactly as Leah had left it. The bed with its purple comforter, the desk covered in sketch pads and colored pencils, the bookshelf crammed with novels and architecture magazines, the walls plastered with photos and postcards and ribbons from various competitions. Victoria sank onto the bed, and that's when she noticed the box. It was tucked under the desk, partially hidden by a drape of fabric. A simple cardboard box with Daniel written on the side in Leah's handwriting. With trembling hands, Victoria pulled it out and opened it. Inside were pieces of a life she'd never known about. Photos of Leah and a young man, Daniel, she presumed, laughing together. At a beach. At a street fair. In what looked like a tiny apartment with mismatched furniture and genuine happiness radiating from every image. There were ticket stubs from movies and concerts, a pressed flower, a small velvet box containing a simple engagement ring, and underneath it all, a photo album. Victoria opened it with reverent care. The first page showed Leah, visibly pregnant, glowing with joy. Daniel's hand rested on her swollen belly, his face pressed close to hers. The caption read, Week 32, almost time to meet our miracle. She turned the pages, watching Leah's pregnancy progress. Then the hospital photos. Leah exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle with a shock of dark hair. Daniel beside her, looking at his daughter with such naked adoration it hurt to see. The photos continued. Elena at 1 day old, 1 week, 1 month, learning to hold her head up, her first smile, sitting up, crawling, walking. A whole life had unfolded, and Victoria had known nothing about it. She found a photo dated July 28th, the same day Leah had written the letter. In it, Leah held 2-month-old Elena, both of them looking at the camera. On the back, in Leah's handwriting, ready to go home, ready to introduce Mama to her granddaughter. Wish me luck. Victoria pressed the photo to her chest and wept. She wept for the daughter who'd been afraid to tell her about the man she loved. She wept for the son-in-law she'd never met, who'd clearly made Leah happier than Victoria had ever managed to. She wept for the grandchild she'd missed the first 7 years of. She wept for Daniel, raising Elena alone, trying to contact Victoria, and being turned away by an assistant who thought she was protecting her boss from inconvenience. But most of all, she wept for herself, for the person she'd become, for the emptiness of her perfectly controlled, perfectly successful, perfectly hollow life. When the tears finally stopped, Victoria stood up with new resolve. She couldn't change the past, couldn't bring Leah or Daniel back, couldn't reclaim those 7 lost years. But she could change what happened next. She could be the grandmother Elena deserved, the family member who showed up, who stayed, who chose people over profits and connection over control. She could, finally, do what Leah had asked in that letter. She could see what really mattered. Victoria pulled out her phone and called her secretary at home. "Margaret, I need you to clear my calendar." "For when?" "For Saturdays, every Saturday indefinitely. No meetings, no calls, no emergencies unless someone is literally dying." "Mrs. Hale, that's going to cause significant scheduling. I don't care, make it happen." "Yes, ma'am." Next, she called her lawyer. "Richard, I need you to set up a trust fund. For my granddaughter, Elena Ruiz, I want it fully funded but with conditions." "What kind of conditions?" "She can access it for education, medical expenses, and basic needs, but the bulk of it doesn't become available until she's 25. And I want a separate account set up for her guardian, Michael Torres. Monthly stipend, enough that he doesn't have to work 2 jobs." "How much are we talking?" Victoria named a figure that made even her wealthy lawyer whistle. "Mrs. Hale, that's..." "Do it. And Richard, I want Michael to have full disclosure. No tricks, no strings, no surprises. He needs to know I'm not trying to buy his cooperation. This is about making sure Elena has what she needs." "Understood. I'll draw up the paperwork." After she hung up, Victoria sat in the dark of Leah's room, surrounded by evidence of a life fully lived, and made a decision. She would sell the company. The thought came out of nowhere but landed with the force of absolute certainty. Hale Global had been her life's work, her identity, her purpose. But what had it gotten her? Money she couldn't spend, power she didn't need, a legacy that would mean nothing to the one person who mattered. Elena would grow up knowing her grandmother not as some distant CEO who sent expensive gifts, but as a real person. Someone who showed up. Someone who chose her. Victoria spent the night in Leah's room, surrounded by ghosts and memories and the faint scent of her daughter's perfume that still somehow lingered after all these years. She looked through every photo, read every letter Daniel had written to Leah, traced the careful handwriting in Leah's journals, where she'd recorded every milestone of Elena's early life. By dawn, she had a plan. When James picked her up at 8, she looked exhausted but determined. "Take me to Michael Torres's address," she said, handing him a piece of paper. "And stop at a bakery on the way. A good one, not some fancy patisserie. A real neighborhood bakery." They found one in Brooklyn, a Puerto Rican panaderia, where the woman behind the counter greeted James like an old friend when he explained what they needed. "For a little girl? I have just the thing." 20 minutes later, Victoria stood outside a 5-story walk-up in a neighborhood that had clearly seen better days. The building was clean but old, with paint peeling around the windows. A group of teenagers sat on the stoop, eyeing her Mercedes with interest. She clutched the bakery box and climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Apartment 3B. She could hear music playing inside and a child's laughter. Victoria knocked. The music cut off. Footsteps approached. The door opened to reveal Michael, still in his bathrobe, his hair wet from the shower. His eyes widened when he saw her. "Victoria, what are you... It's 7 in the morning on Sunday." "I know. I'm sorry for coming unannounced, but I needed to tell you something, and it couldn't wait." "Grandma Victoria!" Elena appeared behind Michael, wearing pajamas covered in cartoon cats. "Did you bring breakfast?" Victoria held up the box. "I brought pastries from a bakery called Hernandez's. The woman said the guava pastelitos are the best in Brooklyn." Elena's face lit up. "Those are our favorite. Tio Michael gets them for me on special occasions." Michael looked between Victoria and the box, clearly torn between wariness and curiosity. Finally, he stepped back. "Come in, I guess." "But you can't make a habit of just showing up. We need boundaries." "I understand." And I promise this is a one-time thing, but I learned something important last night, and I wanted to share it with both of you. The apartment was tiny, a living room that doubled as Michael's bedroom, with a sofa bed currently folded out, and a single small bedroom that was clearly Elena's. But it was spotlessly clean and filled with evidence of love. Elena's drawings covered the refrigerator. Photos of her with Michael and with Daniel decorated every surface. A bookshelf was crammed with library books and well-worn favorites. They sat at a small table near the window, and Victoria opened the box. Elena immediately grabbed a pastelito, biting into it with evident pleasure. "So, what couldn't wait?" Michael asked, pouring coffee for himself and Victoria. Victoria took a deep breath. "I went to my old house last night, the one where Leah grew up. I found a box in her room, photos of her with Daniel, and an album documenting Elena's first few months." Michael's expression softened. Daniel made that album. He was so proud of every little thing Elena did. First smile, first tooth, first time she grabbed his finger. "It was beautiful," Victoria said quietly. "And it made me realize something. I've spent the last 10 years mourning my daughter, but I never really knew her, not the adult she became. I knew the child I raised, the teenager I tried to control, but I didn't know the woman who fell in love with a carpenter and chose happiness over ambition." She pulled out the photo from the back of the album, Leah and Elena, ready to come home. She was bringing Elena to meet me. She was ready to fight for her family, to make me see what really mattered, and I was too busy to even notice she was missing until it was too late. "Victoria, but," Michael started, but she held up a hand. "Let me finish. I can't change the past. I can't bring Leah back or meet Daniel or get those first 7 years with Elena, but I can change what happens now, so I'm making some changes." She explained about clearing her Saturdays, about the trust fund, about the stipend for Michael. His face went through a series of emotions: surprise, suspicion, anger. "I don't want your money," he said finally. "This isn't about you," Victoria said firmly. "It's about Elena, about making sure she has every opportunity, about making sure you don't have to choose between spending time with her and working enough to pay the bills. We're doing fine." "Are you?" Victoria gestured around the cramped apartment. "Michael, you work 2 jobs. Elena told me yesterday that sometimes you fall asleep during her bedtime stories because you're so tired. That's not fine. That's you killing yourself trying to do everything alone. So what? You're going to swoop in and save us? Make us your charity project?" Victoria met his angry gaze steadily. "No, I'm going to be Elena's grandmother, and part of that means making sure the people who love her have the support they need. You gave up everything to raise her. Let me help." "Why?" Michael demanded. "Why now? Where were you 3 years ago when Daniel died and I was trying to figure out how to take care of a toddler while working full-time? Where were you when Elena started kindergarten and I couldn't afford the school supplies? Where were you when she got sick last winter and I had to choose between her doctor's appointment and making rent?" The accusations hurt because they were true. "I wasn't there," Victoria said simply. "Because I didn't know, and yes, I should have known. If I'd been a better mother, Leah wouldn't have been afraid to tell me about her pregnancy. If I'd made myself available, Daniel might have tried harder to reach me. If I'd prioritized family over work, none of this would have happened. I own that. All of it." She leaned forward, her voice intense. "But I'm here now, and I'm not asking you to forget the past or forgive me for not being there. I'm just asking you to let me try, for Elena's sake, because she deserves a grandmother who shows up." Michael stared at her for a long moment. Then he looked at Elena, who'd been listening quietly while eating her second pastelito. "What do you think, mija?" he asked. "Do you want Grandma Victoria to be around more?" Elena nodded vigorously. "Yes, she's nice, and she's funny when she doesn't mean to be, and—" She paused, her little face serious. "And I think Mama would want us to be a family, all of us." Michael's eyes filled with tears. He rubbed them away roughly. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay, we can try this, but Victoria, I need you to understand something. Elena is not Leah. Being around her won't bring your daughter back." "I know," Victoria said softly, "but being around her might help me become the person my daughter wanted me to be." 3 weeks later, Victoria found herself doing something she never imagined she would do. She was sitting in an elementary school cafeteria on a hard plastic chair, surrounded by other parents and guardians, waiting for the second-grade winter concert to begin. Michael sat beside her, looking almost as uncomfortable as she felt. He'd changed out of his work uniform into clean jeans and a button-down shirt, but his knee bounced nervously, and he kept checking his phone. "She's going to be fine," Victoria said quietly. "Elena told me she's been practicing her song every night." "I know, it's just, this is her first real performance. She's been so excited, but this morning she said her stomach hurt. What if she gets stage fright?" Victoria found herself smiling. "Then we'll applaud anyway, and tell her she was brave for trying." The past 3 weeks had been a revelation. True to her word, Victoria had kept every Saturday free. Sometimes they went to Lou's kitchen, sometimes to the park. Once, when it rained, they'd spent the afternoon in Victoria's penthouse apartment watching animated movies while Elena explained the plot points Victoria missed, and Michael dozed on the couch, finally getting the rest he desperately needed. Slowly, carefully, they were building something. Not quite a family yet, but the framework of one. The lights dimmed and the cafeteria full of fidgeting parents quieted. Mrs. Patterson, Elena's teacher, stepped to the front with a microphone that squealed feedback before settling. "Thank you all for coming to our winter celebration," she said warmly. "Our second graders have been working so hard, and they're excited to share what they've learned. Let's give them a big round of applause as they come out." The children filed onto the makeshift stage, a raised platform at the front of the cafeteria, in a chaotic line that barely resembled the orderly entrance they'd probably rehearsed. Victoria spotted Elena immediately. She wore the same yellow dress from that first lunch, but Victoria had noticed it had been carefully mended and pressed. The girl's eyes scanned the audience anxiously until she found them. When she did, her whole face transformed with relief and joy. Victoria waved, and Elena waved back so enthusiastically she nearly knocked over the boy standing next to her. The concert was exactly what one would expect from 7-year-olds. Sweet and slightly off-key, with some children forgetting lyrics and others singing at the wrong tempo. But when Elena's class performed "You Are My Sunshine," and Victoria heard her granddaughter's clear, confident voice rising above the others, something inside her chest cracked open even wider. She glanced at Michael and saw tears streaming down his face. He didn't bother to wipe them away. "Daniel should be here," he whispered. "He'd be so proud." Victoria reached over and squeezed his hand. "He knows. Somehow, he knows." After the concert, parents crowded around the stage to collect their children. Elena launched herself at Michael, who caught her and swung her around. "Did you see me? Did you hear me? I didn't forget any words." "You were perfect, Mija. Absolutely perfect." "What about you, Grandma Victoria? Did you like it?" Victoria knelt down to Elena's level, not caring that her expensive slacks were on the grimy cafeteria floor. "You were the best one up there. Your voice was so clear and beautiful." "Really? Because Marcus said I sang too loud, but Mrs. Patterson said there's no such thing as too loud when you're singing from your heart." "Mrs. Patterson is very wise." A woman approached them, smiling warmly. She had kind eyes and wore a cardigan covered in snowflakes. "You must be Elena's grandmother. She's been so excited about you coming. I'm Ann Patterson, her teacher." Victoria stood and shook her hand. "Victoria Hale. It's a pleasure to meet you. Elena is such a joy to have in class. Creative, curious, kind to her classmates. You should be very proud." "We are," Michael said, his hand protective on Elena's shoulder. Mrs. Patterson's expression shifted slightly, becoming more serious. "Could I speak with you both for a moment? Privately?" Michael and Victoria exchanged glances. "Elena, why don't you go show Grandma Victoria your classroom?" Michael suggested. "We'll be right there." "Okay. Come on, Grandma Victoria. I'll show you my desk and the hamster and everything." As Elena dragged Victoria toward the hallway, Victoria heard Mrs. Patterson say, "It's nothing terrible, I promise, but there have been some incidents I think you should know about." In the classroom, Elena chattered excitedly, showing Victoria her cubby with her name on it, her desk with the scratch marks she'd accidentally made with scissors, the reading corner where they got to sit on bean bags. But Victoria's mind was half on the conversation happening outside. When Michael and Mrs. Patterson finally entered, Michael's face was tight with worry. "What is it?" Victoria asked. Mrs. Patterson looked at Elena. "Sweetheart, could you go get your backpack from your cubby? Take your time." Once Elena was out of earshot, the teacher continued. Elena is doing wonderfully academically, but there have been some social challenges. Some of the other children have been asking questions about her family situation. Why she doesn't have a mom or dad. Why she lives with her uncle instead of her parents. Kids can be cruel, Michael said, his voice hard. They're not being deliberately mean, Mrs. Patterson said gently. They're just curious. But last week, a boy named Tyler told Elena that she couldn't play house at recess because she didn't have a real family. It upset her quite a bit. Victoria felt anger surge through her. Which child is Tyler? I'd like to speak with his parents. That won't be necessary, Mrs. Patterson said quickly. We addressed it immediately. Tyler apologized, and we had a class discussion about different kinds of families. But I wanted you to know because Elena has been quieter since then, less willing to share in circle time. Michael crouched beside Elena's desk, his head in his hands. God, I thought we were past this. She went through a phase like this right after Daniel died. Stopped talking at school. Stopped making eye contact. What helped then? Victoria asked. Time, therapy, and a lot of reassurance that she was safe and loved. He looked up at Mrs. Patterson. Is she going to need more counseling? I think it would be beneficial. Not because there's anything wrong with Elena, but because she's processing some complex feelings, and having professional support can only help. After Mrs. Patterson left, they collected Elena and headed out to the parking lot. The girl was quiet now. The excitement from the concert faded. Elena, Victoria said carefully, Mrs. Patterson told us what happened at recess. With Tyler. Elena's face fell. I'm not supposed to talk about it. Mrs. Patterson said it's resolved. You're not in trouble, Michael said quickly. We just want to make sure you're okay. I'm fine. Mija, you can talk to us. About anything. Elena was silent for a long moment. Then, in a small voice, she said, Tyler said I'm an orphan. He said orphans don't have families, but I do have a family, right? I have you, Tio Michael, and now I have Grandma Victoria. That's a family. Victoria felt her heart break and mend simultaneously. Yes, sweetheart, that's absolutely a family. Then why did it make me so sad when he said it? Michael picked her up even though she was getting too big to be carried easily. Because words can hurt even when they're wrong. Tyler was wrong about you not having a family, but he was right that you're an orphan, and that's a hard thing. It's okay to be sad about it. I miss my papa, Elena whispered. I miss him so much sometimes I can't breathe. I know, baby. I miss him too. Victoria watched them, feeling like an intruder on an intimate moment of grief. But then Elena reached out a hand toward her. Grandma Victoria, did you know my papa? No, sweetheart. I never had the chance to meet him. But I've seen pictures, and Michael has told me stories. Your papa sounded like a wonderful man. He was the best papa in the whole world. He used to sing me songs in Spanish and make me pancakes shaped like animals and read me stories with funny voices. He loved you very much. Do you think he's with my mama in heaven? Victoria had never been particularly religious, but looking at this child's hopeful face, she said, Yes, I think they're together, watching over you. And I think they're proud of the brave, kind, smart girl you're becoming. That night, after dropping Michael and Elena back at their apartment, Victoria sat in her penthouse staring out at the Manhattan skyline. She'd spent decades in this apartment, but it had never felt like home. It was a showcase, a statement, a place to sleep between business trips. Every piece of furniture was designer, every surface pristine. There were no photos on the walls, no personal touches, nothing that suggested an actual human being lived here. She thought about Michael and Elena's cramped apartment with its mismatched furniture and cluttered surfaces. It was small and worn, but it was full of life, full of love. What had she built with all her success? Empty rooms and empty achievements? Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but the number was unfamiliar, and something made her pick up. Ms. Hale? This is Dr. Sarah Chen from Brooklyn Family Services. I'm calling about Elena Ruiz. Victoria's blood went cold. What's wrong? Is she hurt? No, nothing like that. I'm calling because Michael Torres listed you as an emergency contact. Elena had a bit of an episode at school today, and that was yesterday, the winter concert. Right, yes. Well, the school counselor referred the case to us, just as a precaution. We're not investigating anything. but we do require a home visit to ensure Elena's living situation is stable and appropriate. When? Victoria demanded. Tomorrow afternoon, 2 o'clock. Mr. Torres has been notified. After she hung up, Victoria immediately called Michael. He answered on the first ring, sounding panicked. Did they call you too? He asked without preamble. Yes. Michael, this is routine. They just want to make sure Elena is safe and cared for. You don't understand. Last time they came, after Daniel died, they almost took her. Said I wasn't a suitable guardian. Single man, no stable income, no family support. I had to fight for months to keep her. But you won. Barely. And that was before... He trailed off. Before what? Before I lost my day job. The community center is cutting hours. I'm down to part-time. I've been picking up night shifts at a warehouse to make up the difference, but it's not enough. I'm 3 months behind on rent, Victoria. 3 months. The landlord gave me until the end of January, but that's only 5 weeks away. Victoria closed her eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I don't want your money. I want to take care of Elena myself. I want to be enough. Michael, accepting help doesn't make you less enough. It makes you smart. Easy for you to say. You've never needed help from anyone. The accusation stung because it was true. Victoria had built her empire on self-sufficiency, on never being vulnerable, on never needing anything from anyone. Let me come with you tomorrow, she said, for the home visit. I'm listed as emergency contact now. I should be there. Fine, whatever. Just don't make things worse. The next afternoon, Victoria arrived at Michael's apartment 15 minutes early. She'd dressed carefully, not in a business suit, but not too casual either. She needed to look responsible and stable without looking like she was trying too hard. Michael answered the door looking exhausted. Elena's at school. I took a half day off to clean. Victoria looked around. The apartment was spotless, but there was no hiding how small it was, how worn the furniture was, how the bathroom door didn't quite close properly, and the kitchen window was cracked and covered with duct tape. Michael, she said gently, have you thought about the stipend I mentioned? The trust fund? I told you, I don't want it. This isn't about what you want. It's about what Elena needs, and right now she needs stability. She needs a home that isn't going to be taken away because you're too proud to accept help. Before he could respond, there was a knock at the door. Dr. Chen was a small, professional woman in her 40s with a kind but assessing gaze. She introduced herself and immediately began walking through the apartment, taking notes. How long have you lived here? She asked Michael. 4 years, since right after Daniel died. And your current employment situation? I work at Riverside Community Center, part-time custodian, and I pick up night shifts at a warehouse in Queens. How many hours per week total? Around 50, 55. Dr. Chen made a note. And childcare while you're working nights? Michael hesitated. Mrs. Chen upstairs watches her. She's been our neighbor for years. She loves Elena. Mrs. Chen is 83 years old, Dr. Chen said, consulting her notes, according to our records. She's very sharp, very capable. I'm sure she is. But 55-hour work weeks, an elderly neighbor providing overnight childcare, rent in arrears. Dr. Chen looked up. Mr. Torres, I'm not here to judge you, but I need to ensure Elena is in a stable environment. She is stable, Michael said desperately. She's happy. She's thriving at school. Ask her teacher. We did. Mrs. Patterson speaks very highly of Elena, but she also mentioned recent behavioral concerns, social withdrawal, comments from other children about Elena's family situation that caused distress. Kids are mean. That's not my fault. No one is saying it's your fault. Dr. Chen's voice softened. But we need to consider what's best for Elena long term. Victoria had been silent until now, but she couldn't stay quiet anymore. Dr. Chen, may I say something? The social worker turned to her. You're listed as emergency contact. Are you family? I'm Elena's grandmother. I only recently came back into her life. Recently? How recently? 3 weeks ago. Dr. Chen's expression became guarded. I see. And where were you before that? I didn't know Elena existed. My daughter, Elena's mother, died before she could tell me about the pregnancy. But now I'm here, and I'm committed to supporting both Elena and Michael. Supporting how? Financially, emotionally, whatever they need. Ms. Hale, are you offering to take custody of Elena? What? No, Michael interjected. Absolutely not. Elena stays with me. I'm not trying to take her, Victoria said quickly. I'm trying to help. I've established a trust fund for Elena's education and future needs, and I'm providing Michael with a monthly stipend so he doesn't have to work himself to death just to keep a roof over their heads. Dr. Chen made more notes. How much is this stipend? Victoria named the amount. The social worker's eyebrows rose. That's quite generous. My granddaughter deserves stability. Michael has been providing that on his own for 4 years with minimal resources. I'm simply ensuring he has the support he needs to continue being the excellent guardian he already is. And what do you get out of this arrangement? The question was sharp, probing. Victoria met Dr. Chen's gaze steadily. I get to know my granddaughter. I get to be part of her life. I get a chance to be the family member I should have been all along. Dr. Chen studied her for a long moment, then looked at Michael. Is this arrangement something you're comfortable with? Michael's jaw worked. Finally, he said, yes. Victoria's help means I can be here for Elena more. Means I don't have to choose between making rent and making it to her school concerts. And Elena? How does she feel about her grandmother being in her life? She loves it, Michael said, and his voice softened. She asks about Victoria constantly. When is Grandma coming again? Can we call Grandma? She's never had a grandmother before. She's never had extended family at all. This is good for her. Dr. Chen closed her notebook. Okay, I'm going to recommend that the case remain open for monitoring, but I don't see any immediate cause for removal. However, Mr. Torres, you need to get current on your rent, and I want to see documentation of this trust fund and stipend arrangement. My lawyer will provide everything you need, Victoria said, already pulling out her phone. I'll have the documents delivered to your office by tomorrow morning. After Dr. Chen left, Michael collapsed onto the couch, his face in his hands. That was too close. If you hadn't been here, if you hadn't had that trust fund already set up. But I was here, and it is set up. Victoria sat beside him. Michael, please, let me help. Not because I think you're inadequate, but because raising a child alone is impossible. My daughter tried to tell me that. She built a support system with Daniel, with you. She understood that family means sharing the burden. This is so hard, Michael whispered. Some days I don't know if I'm doing right by her. If I'm enough? You're more than enough. Elena is happy and healthy and full of love because of you. All I'm offering is a little breathing room, a little safety net. Michael looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. Why are you really doing this? And don't give me the line about being a grandmother. There's something else. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she said, My son. I have a son. Had a son. His name is Theo. Michael straightened. Elena has an uncle? Technically, but Theo and I... She struggled with the words. We haven't spoken in 5 years. Not since Leah's funeral. He blamed me for her death. Said if I'd been a better mother, if I'd made myself available, she wouldn't have been scared to come home. She wouldn't have been on that road in the rain. That's not fair. It's completely fair, he was right. And I said terrible things back to him. Told him he was weak. That he'd never amount to anything. That his grief was just an excuse for his failures. Victoria's voice cracked. He was grieving his sister, and I attacked him for it because I couldn't face my own guilt. Where's he now? I don't know. He moved to California, San Francisco, I think. He sends a Christmas card every year with just his signature. No letter, no return address. Just a reminder that he exists. You should contact him. Tell him about Elena. I wouldn't know what to say. Michael looked at her seriously. You say, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be better. And your niece needs you. The words sat between them like a challenge. That night, Victoria sat at her desk with a glass of wine and a blank piece of stationery. She'd written 100 corporate emails that moved millions of dollars. She'd negotiated deals that shaped international markets. But writing to her son felt impossible. Finally, she simply wrote the truth. Theo, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know something. Your sister had a daughter, Elena. She's 7 years old and has Leah's eyes and your sense of humor, even though she's never met you. She's being raised by a good man named Michael, and I'm trying so hard to be the grandmother Leah wanted me to be. I know I failed as a mother to both of you, but maybe I can do better as a grandmother. Maybe I can be the person you both deserved. Elena should know her uncle. She should know she has more family than just me and Michael. If you're willing, if you can find it in your heart to give me one more chance, please come home. Not for me. For her. Love, Mom. She addressed it to the California P.O. box from the Christmas cards and mailed it before she could change her mind. A week later, she got a response. Just 3 words on a postcard showing the Golden Gate Bridge. I'll think about it. It wasn't much, but it was more than she'd had in 5 years. Meanwhile, life with Elena settled into a rhythm. Every Saturday, they spent the day together. Sometimes all 3 of them, sometimes just Victoria and Elena, while Michael worked or caught up on sleep. They went to museums and parks, to movies and bookstores. Slowly, Victoria's sterile penthouse accumulated signs of life. Elena's drawings on the refrigerator, a photo of the 3 of them at the zoo, a child's toothbrush in the guest bathroom for the nights Elena slept over. Michael stopped fighting the stipend after the trust fund paperwork came through, and he realized Victoria had structured everything to ensure he maintained guardianship. The money went to a separate account he could access for rent, groceries, Elena's needs, but never so much that it made him dependent. It was support, not control. For the first time in years, Michael didn't wake up panicked about bills. He cut back to one job, which meant he could actually be awake during Elena's waking hours. He could help with homework. He could make dinner instead of relying on sandwiches and takeout. He could read bedtime stories without falling asleep mid-sentence. And Elena bloomed. She became more confident at school, more willing to talk about her family situation. When kids asked about her parents, she said simply, "My mama and papa are in heaven, but I have Tio Michael and Grandma Victoria, and they love me very much." Mrs. Patterson reported that Elena was back to her cheerful self, leading games at recess and volunteering to read aloud in class. But there were still hard moments. The school's Thanksgiving project asked kids to draw their family tree. Elena drew it with Leah and Daniel at the top, then lines down to herself, with Michael and Victoria beside her. She colored it carefully, adding flowers and stars. When Victoria saw it, tears sprang to her eyes. "This is beautiful, sweetheart. Do you think it's okay that I put you and Tio Michael next to me instead of Mama and Papa? I think it's perfect. It shows your family exactly as it is. The people in heaven who love you and the people on earth who love you." Miss Rodriguez, she's my art teacher. She said some kids have complicated families. She said complicated doesn't mean bad. It just means interesting. Miss Rodriguez is very smart. As Christmas approached, Victoria did something she hadn't done in years. She put up a tree. Not a decorator's tree with a carefully chosen theme and professionally placed ornaments. A real tree that she and Elena picked out at a lot in Brooklyn that they dragged up to the penthouse themselves, that they decorated with a chaotic mix of ornaments while drinking hot chocolate and listening to carols. Michael helped string the lights, and they ordered pizza and ate it straight from the box while sitting on the floor surrounded by tinsel. "This is the best Christmas tree I've ever seen," Elena declared, hanging a handmade ornament she'd crafted at school. "Even better than the one at Rockefeller Center," Victoria teased. "Way better, because we made it together." On Christmas Eve, Victoria hosted dinner at her penthouse. She'd hired a caterer, but kept it simple. Comfort food, not fancy cuisine. Michael brought Mrs. Chen, their neighbor, who regaled them with stories of Michael and Elena's early days in the building. "This one," she said, pointing at Michael, "he didn't know the first thing about raising a little girl. Came knocking on my door at 2 a.m. because Elena had a fever, and he was convinced she was dying." "She was really hot," Michael protested. "She had a cold, mijo, a normal childhood cold." They laughed together, and Victoria felt something she hadn't felt in over a decade. Peace, connection, home. Later, after Mrs. Chen had been driven home and Elena was asleep in the guest room, Michael and Victoria sat on the balcony looking out at the city lights. Thank you, Michael said quietly, for all of this, for not trying to take her, for helping instead of controlling. Thank you for letting me in. I know it wasn't easy. It's getting easier. He paused. Elena asked me yesterday if you were going to live with us. Victoria laughed. What did you tell her? That you have your own place, but he looked uncomfortable. She said she wished we could all live together, like a real family. We are a real family, Michael. We're just spread across a few zip codes. Yeah, he smiled. Yeah, I guess we are. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city breathe below them, and Victoria thought about how much had changed in just 3 months. She'd gone from a woman who measured her life in quarterly reports to someone who measured it in a child's laughter, in bedtime stories, in handmade Christmas ornaments. She'd traded some of her success for connection, some of her control for vulnerability, some of her power for love. And for the first time in her carefully constructed life, she felt wealthy in the ways that actually mattered. The call came on a Tuesday morning in late January, while Victoria was reviewing contracts in her office. Margaret buzzed through with unusual hesitation in her voice. Mrs. Hale, there's a gentleman here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says he's your son. Victoria's pen clattered to the desk. Send him in. She stood, smoothing her suit jacket with trembling hands, trying to prepare herself. But nothing could have prepared her for the man who walked through her office door. Theo had changed dramatically in 5 years. The angry 25-year-old she'd last seen at Leah's funeral had transformed into a lean, bearded man of 30 with cautious eyes and calloused hands. He wore jeans and a worn leather jacket, and he stood in the doorway like he was ready to bolt at any moment. Hello, Mother, he said quietly. Victoria's throat constricted. Theo, you came. I got your letter. Actually, I got all your letters over the years. I just never responded. He shifted his weight. Can I sit? Of course, please. Victoria gestured to the chair across from her desk, then thought better of it. Actually, let's sit over here. She moved to the small seating area by the windows, away from the desk that represented everything that had come between them. They sat, an ocean of leather couch between them, and studied each other like strangers. You look different, Victoria said finally. Older, more settled. I'm a carpenter now, in San Francisco. I have my own small business building custom furniture. He held up his hands, showing the calluses and scars. Turns out I'm actually good at working with my hands. Victoria remembered her cruel words from 5 years ago, that he'd never amount to anything, that he was wasting his life. Theo, Don't, he interrupted. Not yet. I'm not ready for apologies. I came because of what you said about Leah having a daughter. I need to know if that's true or if it was just some manipulation to get me to contact you. The accusation hurt, but Victoria couldn't blame him. It's true. Her name is Elena. She's 7 years old, and she looks so much like Leah it's almost painful. Theo's face crumpled slightly before he got control of it. Tell me everything. How did you find out? Where has she been? So Victoria told him. About the cemetery, about Michael, about Daniel and Leah's hidden life, about the past 4 months of slowly building a relationship with the granddaughter she'd never known existed. Theo listened without interrupting, his expression cycling through shock, anger, grief, and something that might have been longing. So our sister had a whole life we knew nothing about, he said when she finished. She was in love, had a baby, and died trying to bring that baby home to meet you. Yes. And you were too busy to notice she was missing until the police showed up. Yes. Theo stood and walked to the windows, staring out at Manhattan. I was angry at you for so long, blamed you for everything, but the truth is, I was just as absent. Leah tried to call me too, those last few months, left voicemails I never returned because I was too wrapped up in my own drama, my failing art career, my terrible relationship, my general quarter-life crisis. You were young. You didn't have the same responsibilities I did. No, but I had the same selfishness. He turned back to face her. We both failed her, Mother. In different ways, but we both failed. The acknowledgement sat between them, heavy and true. I'd like to meet her, Theo said. Elena, if that's allowed, if Michael's okay with it. I'll ask. But Theo, you should know she's been through a lot. Loss, instability, kids being cruel about her family situation. She's resilient, but she's also vulnerable. If you're going to be in her life, you need to stay. You can't appear and then disappear again when things get difficult. Like I did with you? Like we both did with each other. Theo nodded slowly. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago, Mother. San Francisco changed me. Therapy changed me. Building things with my hands instead of trying to create pretentious art changed me. I'm not saying I'm perfect now, but I'm more stable, more reliable. Then I'd like you to come to dinner this Saturday. Meet Elena and Michael. See what we're trying to build here. We? Theo's eyebrows rose. You and this Michael guy? No, not like that. We're co-parenting, essentially. He's Elena's legal guardian, and I'm her grandmother. We're figuring it out as we go. That must be killing you, not being in control. Victoria smiled ruefully. It was at first, but I'm learning that some things are more important than control. Theo studied her for a long moment. You're different too. Softer, somehow. Elena has that effect on people. Saturday arrived with a winter storm that blanketed the city in snow. Victoria had offered to host at her penthouse, but Michael insisted they should meet on his turf. Theo needs to see where Elena actually lives, needs to understand who we are before he decides if he wants to be part of this. So Victoria found herself back in the cramped Brooklyn apartment, this time with Theo in tow. Her son had been quiet during the car ride, staring out at the snow-covered streets with an unreadable expression. Michael opened the door with Elena beside him. The little girl wore a purple dress and had clearly spent time on her hair, which was pulled back in an elaborate braid courtesy of Mrs. Chen. Grandma Victoria! Elena hugged her immediately, then looked at Theo with wide, curious eyes. Is this him? Is this my uncle? Yes, sweetheart. This is Theo, my son, your mother's brother. Elena stepped forward and extended her hand formally. It's very nice to meet you, Uncle Theo. Tio Michael taught me how to shake hands properly. You're supposed to look at the person's eyes and squeeze firm, but not too firm. Theo knelt down and shook her hand, his face doing something complicated. It's nice to meet you too, Elena. You look just like your mom. She was my best friend when we were kids. Really? What was she like? She was brave and funny and creative, and she always stood up for me when bigger kids tried to pick on me. I wish I could have met her, Elena said wistfully. Tio Michael and Grandma Victoria tell me stories, but it's not the same. No, it's not the same. Theo's voice was rough. But maybe I can tell you some stories she wouldn't have told you herself, like the time she convinced me to help her climb onto the garage roof to watch a meteor shower, and we got stuck up there for 3 hours. Elena giggled. You got stuck? How? We were so busy watching shooting stars we didn't realize the ladder fell over. Your grandmother found us at 2 a.m, sitting on the roof eating the snacks we'd brought up, waiting for someone to rescue us. Was she mad? Furious, Theo said, glancing at Victoria. But after she stopped yelling, she climbed up with us and watched the meteors for a while. It was one of the best nights of my childhood. Victoria remembered that night. She'd been terrified when she realized her children were on the roof, then angry that they'd been so reckless, then charmed. Enchanted by their wonder, their closeness, the way Leah had insisted Theo sit between them so he wouldn't be scared of the height. When had she stopped having nights like that? When had she traded wonder for worry, joy for judgment? Michael had prepared lunch, his famous rice and beans, along with roast chicken and fresh bread. They crowded around the small table, elbows bumping, and shared a meal that was simple but perfect. So you build furniture? Michael asked Theo, making conversation. What kind? Custom pieces mostly, tables, chairs, cabinets. I specialize in reclaimed wood, taking old, discarded materials and turning them into something beautiful and functional. That's what Daniel did, Michael said softly. He was a carpenter too. He believed in making things that would last, things with meaning and purpose. I would have liked to meet him, Theo said. Sounds like he was a good man. The best. Michael looked at Elena, who was carefully arranging rice and beans in patterns on her plate. He loved your mama so much, mija. He would have loved you too. I know, Elena said simply, because love doesn't stop just because someone goes to heaven. That's what Mrs. Chen says. Love keeps going and going, even after. After lunch, while Michael and Victoria cleaned up, Theo and Elena sat on the couch looking through photo albums. Victoria watched from the kitchen as her son pointed out pictures of Leah at various ages, telling stories that made Elena laugh or gasp with delight. "He's good with her," Michael murmured, drying a dish. "He always wanted to be a father. Even when he was young, he'd talk about having kids someday, teaching them things, showing them the world." "What happened between you two? If you don't mind me asking." Victoria was quiet for a moment, carefully washing a pot. I pushed him to be something he wasn't, pushed him into business school when he wanted to study art, told him his dreams were impractical. When he finally stood up to me, I said things, terrible things, things a mother should never say to her child. And at Leah's funeral, he blamed me for her death. And instead of accepting that, instead of acknowledging my role in pushing Leah away, I attacked him. Told him he was weak and pathetic for grieving so openly. Told him he was using Leah's death as an excuse for his own failures. Victoria's hand stilled in the soapy water. I couldn't face my own guilt, so I made him the villain of my story. "That's heavy," Michael said quietly. "Yes, it is." She resumed washing, needing something to do with her hands. But today, watching him with Elena, seeing the man he's become despite me rather than because of me, I have hope. Maybe it's not too late to rebuild what I destroyed. From the living room, Elena's laughter rang out as Theo showed her a photo of teenage Leah with a terrible haircut she'd given herself. "She cut her own hair?" Elena asked incredulously. "With kitchen scissors. It was supposed to be edgy and cool. It ended up being uneven and weird." "What did Grandma Victoria say?" "She said Leah looked like she'd been attacked by a lawnmower. Then she took her to an expensive salon to fix it. But Leah refused to let them cut it too short. She said she wanted to keep her mistake visible so she'd remember not to do it again." "That sounds like something I would do," Elena said thoughtfully. "Yeah?" Theo grinned. "Well, don't try it. Trust me. Kitchen scissors and hair don't mix." Later, after Elena had convinced Theo to play cards with her, a complicated game of her own invention with rules that changed every 5 minutes, Michael pulled Victoria aside. "Your son is good people," he said. "Angry and hurt, maybe, but good underneath." "You can tell that after just a few hours?" "I'm a good judge of character. Had to be, raising Elena alone." "You learn to spot the people who genuinely care versus the people just going through motions." He glanced at Theo, who was letting Elena win dramatically. "He cares. About you. About Leah's memory. About Elena. He's just scared of getting hurt again." "Aren't we all?" As the afternoon wore on, the conversation grew deeper. They talked about Leah, sharing memories from different angles. Victoria told stories from Leah's childhood, her first day of school, her science fair project on solar energy, the time she rescued a bird with a broken wing and nursed it back to health. Theo shared stories from their teenage years, how Leah had helped him deal with bullies, how she'd stayed up all night helping him study for tests, how she'd been the first person he came out to when he was questioning his sexuality. "Wait," Elena interrupted. "You're gay, Uncle Theo?" "Bisexual, actually. Is that okay?" Elena shrugged. "Why wouldn't it be? Love is love. That's what my teacher says. She has 2 moms and they're both super nice." Theo looked at Victoria, something vulnerable in his expression. "Mother?" "What Elena said. Love is love." Victoria's voice was firm. "I'm sorry I wasn't more accepting when you were younger. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to hide parts of yourself." "I didn't think I'd ever hear you say that," Theo said quietly. "I'm saying a lot of things I never thought I would. Elena has a way of making the impossible feel possible." As evening approached and the snow continued to fall, coating the city in white, Elena grew quiet and contemplative. Finally, she asked the question Victoria sensed had been building all day. "Uncle Theo, are you going to stay? Or are you going to go back to California and forget about us?" Theo looked startled, then sad. "I'm not going to forget about you, Elena. Never." "But you're leaving, right? That's what people do. They leave." The pain in her voice was heartbreaking. This child who'd lost both parents, who'd seen people come and go, who'd learned too young that love didn't always mean staying. Theo glanced at Michael, then at Victoria, then back to Elena. "I'm going back to California. My business is there, my life is there, but that doesn't mean I'm leaving you. It just means I'll visit. And you can visit me, and we'll video chat and text and stay connected. Promise? I promise. And Elena, I know promises might feel empty to you. You've had people leave before. But I'm going to prove to you that I mean it. Every week I'm going to call. Every month I'm going to send you something. Maybe a drawing, maybe a small wooden toy I made, maybe just a postcard. And every few months I'm going to come visit. Or you can come see San Francisco. Really? I could visit California? If Theo Michael says it's okay, absolutely. Elena looked at Michael hopefully. He smiled. We'll figure it out, mija. The little girl threw herself at Theo, hugging him fiercely. I'm so glad you're my uncle. I always wanted more family. Over her head, Theo's eyes met Victoria's, and she saw tears there. Her son, her damaged, estranged, wonderful son, was healing. They were all healing, knitting together into something that resembled a family. Before Theo left, Victoria caught him alone in the hallway while Michael was putting Elena to bed. Thank you for coming, she said. I know it wasn't easy. It was easier than I expected. Theo leaned against the wall, looking exhausted but lighter somehow. She's amazing, Mom. Leah would be so proud. Mom. He'd called her Mom. Not Mother, which he used like a weapon, but Mom. Theo, I want you to know I'm selling the company. His eyes widened. What? Hale Global? You're joking. I'm not. I've already started the process. I'm keeping a seat on the board and maintaining some investments, but I'm stepping down as CEO, effective March 1st. Why? That company is your life. No, Victoria said firmly. It was my life, past tense. Now I have something more important. I have Elena. And if you'll let me, I'd like to have you back too. Theo was silent for a long moment, processing. What will you do? You've been working since you were 25. I can't imagine you just... Stopping! I'm not stopping. I'm redirecting. I want to start a foundation in Leah's name, supporting single parents and guardians like Michael, helping them with housing, childcare, legal assistance, making sure no one has to choose between working enough to survive and being present for their children. That's actually really good, Mom. I figure it's something useful I can do with my resources, something that would make Leah proud, something that might balance out some of the damage I've done. You're not irredeemable, you know, Theo said. You made mistakes, bad ones, but you're trying to fix them. That counts for something. Is it enough to earn your forgiveness? Theo considered this. Ask me in a year. After I've seen if you can maintain this change, if you can be the grandmother Elena needs and maybe, eventually, the mother I needed back then. It wasn't absolution, but it was a door left open. Victoria would take it. Over the next several weeks, Victoria's life transformed completely. She went into the office less and less, delegating more to her successor, focusing on the foundation plans. She spent her freed-up time with Elena, helping with homework, attending school events, teaching her about business and finance in child-appropriate ways. Michael's new job came through, a facilities manager position at a nonprofit that paid actual salary with benefits. The relief on his face when he told them was profound. No more cobbling together multiple part-time gigs, no more overnight shifts that left him exhausted. Actual stability. With the financial pressure eased and Victoria's involvement normalized, their unusual family found its rhythm. Elena thrived, becoming more confident and outgoing. Her grades improved. She joined the school art club and discovered a talent for painting that reminded everyone of Leah. Theo called every Sunday evening, talking to Elena about her week, telling her about his furniture projects, making her laugh with stories about his two cats who apparently hated each other. He sent packages, small wooden animals he carved, books he thought she'd like, postcards from around San Francisco. And slowly, carefully, Theo and Victoria began rebuilding their own relationship. Their conversations were brief at first, stilted and formal. But gradually they found common ground. They talked about Leah, sharing memories and grief. They talked about Elena, coordinating visits and discussing her needs. Eventually, they started talking about other things. Theo's business, Victoria's foundation, books they were reading, small, ordinary things that stitched them back together, one conversation at a time. In March, Victoria was officially no longer CEO of Hale Global. The Wall Street Journal ran a feature about her shocking decision to step down at the height of her power. She didn't give them the real reason, that she'd realized too late what actually mattered, instead citing a desire to focus on philanthropic work. The Leah Hale Foundation launched in April, with Michael as a consultant helping design programs that actually address the needs of struggling guardians. They provided emergency grants for rent and utilities, subsidized childcare, legal assistance for custody issues, and mental health support for both children and caregivers. The first family they helped was a single father in Queens whose wife had died of cancer, leaving him with 3 kids under 10 and medical debt that would take decades to pay off. The foundation cleared his debt, set up a trust for his children's education, and connected him with a support group of other single fathers. When Victoria met him to explain the assistance, the man had cried, "Why are you doing this? You don't even know us." "Because someone should have done it for my son-in-law," Victoria said simply. "And I'm making sure every guardian who comes after gets the support Daniel never had." Elena attended the foundation launch event, dressed in a new blue dress Victoria had bought her, but that Elena had customized with fabric paint and iron-on patches. She stood beside Victoria as they cut the ribbon, solemn and proud. "Is this because of my papa?" she asked afterward. "Yes, sweetheart, and your mama, and everyone who struggled alone when they shouldn't have had to." "I think they'd be proud of you, Grandma Victoria." Victoria knelt down to Elena's level. "I hope so. I'm trying very hard to be someone worth being proud of." "You already are," Elena said matter-of-factly. "Theo Michaels says you're proof that people can change if they really want to." In May, on Elena's 8th birthday, they gathered for a celebration that would have been unimaginable a year ago. Michael's apartment was too small, so they used Victoria's penthouse. Mrs. Chen came, along with several of Elena's school friends and their parents. Theo flew in from San Francisco, bringing a hand-carved jewelry box inlaid with different woods that formed a pattern of stars. But the biggest surprise came when the doorbell rang and Victoria opened it to find a woman in her mid-50s with silver-streaked hair and Leah's smile. "Caroline," Victoria breathed. Her ex-husband, Elena's other grandmother, stood in the doorway looking nervous and hopeful. "I know I should have called first, but I've been following the foundation news and I saw the photos of Elena and I had to meet her. If that's allowed. If I'm allowed." Victoria and Caroline had divorced when Theo was 15 and Leah was 12. Their marriage a casualty of Victoria's workaholism and Caroline's affair with a colleague. The split had been bitter and acrimonious. Caroline had moved to Boston, maintaining relationship with the children but cutting all ties with Victoria. They hadn't spoken in over a decade. "Does Caroline know?" Victoria asked quietly. "About Elena?" "Theo called me last month, told me everything. I've been trying to work up the courage to reach out." Caroline twisted her hands together. "I know I have no right to be here. I wasn't a great parent either. I chose my new relationship over my kids and let you be the villain while I played the victim. But I'd like to meet my granddaughter, if you'll allow it." Victoria looked back at the party, at Elena laughing with her friends, at Michael serving cake, at Theo chatting with Mrs. Chen. She thought about second chances, about how she'd been given one and how transformative it had been. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. "But Caroline, Elena has been through enough. If you're going to do this, you stay. You don't get to meet her once and disappear. You commit or you leave now." "I commit," Caroline said immediately. "I'm retired now. I have time. I have space in my life. I want to be part of hers." They approached Elena together, and Victoria made the introduction. "Elena, sweetheart, there's someone here who'd like to meet you. This is Caroline. She's Theo's and your mama's other parent." Elena looked up from her cake, her eyes going wide. "I have another grandma?" "You do, if you'd like." Elena studied Caroline seriously. "Do you like chocolate cake?" Caroline laughed, surprised. "I love chocolate cake." "Good. You can have some of mine, but not the corner piece. That's Theo Michaels because he made it, and corner pieces are the best." Just like that, Elena accepted another person into her ever-expanding circle, because that's what children did. They adapted. They forgave. They made room for love in all its complicated forms. As the party continued, Victoria found herself standing on her balcony with Michael, watching through the glass as their unusual family celebrated. A year ago, I was alone, Victoria said quietly. Completely, utterly alone. I had money and power and nothing else. And now? Now I have Elena. I have you. I have Theo again. Even Caroline, apparently. She shook her head in wonder. How did this happen? You let it happen, Michael said. You could have walked away that day at the cemetery, could have dismissed us as a problem or a complication. But you didn't. You stayed. You showed up. You chose us. Best decision I ever made. Michael smiled. You know, Elena asked me something the other day. She asked if you were her fairy godmother instead of her grandma. What? Why? Because you appeared out of nowhere and made everything better, like magic. He laughed at Victoria's expression. I explained that you're not magic. You're just a person trying her best. But she said that's what makes it more special, that you chose to help even though you didn't have to. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. She's wise beyond her years. She's had to be. But thanks to you, maybe she can just be a kid for a while. Let the adults carry the weight. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching Elena blow out her birthday candles while everyone sang. She closed her eyes, made her wish, and blew with all her might. The candles flickered and died, and everyone cheered. What do you think she wished for? Victoria asked. Probably a puppy, Michael said. She's been campaigning hard for one. Well, I happen to know a very good breeder who has golden retriever puppies available next month. Michael groaned. Victoria, no. Our apartment is too small for a dog. Good thing the foundation has a housing assistance program. I'm sure we could find you something with a little more space, maybe even a small yard. You're incorrigible. I'm a grandmother. It's my job to spoil her. As night fell and the party wound down, Elena fell asleep on the couch between Caroline and Theo, exhausted from excitement and sugar. Victoria covered her with a blanket and stood looking at this child who had changed everything. Michael came to stand beside her. Thank you, he said softly. For all of this, for being the family I couldn't give her on my own. Thank you for letting me be part of her life, for giving me a second chance I didn't deserve. Everyone deserves a second chance, Michael said. Even workaholic billionaires with control issues. Victoria laughed quietly, careful not to wake Elena. I'll have you know I'm a reformed workaholic billionaire with control issues. Still working on the reform part? Every single day. They stood together, watching Elena sleep, and Victoria thought about how strange and wonderful life could be. How you could lose everything and still find your way back to something real. How the worst moment of your life could, impossibly, lead to something precious. Leo was gone. Daniel was gone. But their love had created Elena, and Elena was creating something new. A family built not on blood alone, but on choice, on effort, on showing up day after day and choosing each other. It wasn't the family Victoria had imagined. It was better. The puppy arrived on a humid June morning, all golden fur and oversized paws and enthusiasm that couldn't be contained. Elena named her Sunny, and within hours the dog had claimed every heart in their newly expanded family. Michael had protested the move to a larger apartment, insisting he could manage the rent on his own, now with his better job. But Victoria had worn him down with logic he couldn't argue against. The foundation owned several properties that had been donated, including a renovated brownstone in Park Slope with a small garden. One of the units was sitting empty. Why shouldn't Elena have a real home with space to grow? You're impossible, Michael had said when she showed him the place. 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a kitchen with actual counter space, and a fenced yard perfect for a dog. I'm practical, Victoria had countered. And before you argue, the rent is market rate. You're not getting charity. You're getting a fair deal on a property that would otherwise sit empty. He'd known she was manipulating the numbers to make him feel better, but he'd also seen Elena's face when she saw the yard. That had been the end of the argument. Now, watching Elena roll in the grass with Sunny while the dog licked her face and made her shriek with laughter, Victoria felt a contentment so profound it almost hurt. She's going to spoil that dog rotten, Caroline observed from her seat on the porch. She'd been visiting monthly since the birthday party, slowly building a relationship with Elena that was still tentative but growing stronger. She's earned the right to spoil something, Victoria replied. She'd grown comfortable with Caroline's presence, their shared history as ex-spouses fading into something more important, their shared love for this child, and their mutual desire to do better than they'd done before. "Have you told her yet?" Caroline asked quietly. "About the anniversary?" Victoria's smile faded. "Not yet. I wanted to wait until closer." October 14th was approaching, the 11th anniversary of Leah's death. For 10 years, Victoria had marked the day alone with her grief and guilt. But this year would be different. This year, they would go together as a family. That evening, after Sunny had been fed and walked and was sleeping in her new dog bed, Victoria sat down with Elena in the little girl's new bedroom. The walls were painted a soft purple, and Elena's drawings covered every available surface. A photo of Leah and Daniel had pride of place on the nightstand. "Elena, I need to talk to you about something important," Victoria began. The girl looked up from the book she was reading, immediately attentive. "Is something wrong?" "No, sweetheart. But you know how we always remember people who've gone to heaven? How Tio Michael takes you to visit your mama and papa's graves? Every month, we bring flowers and tell them about what's happening. Well, October 14th is a special day. It's the day your mama went to heaven, and I was wondering if you'd like all of us to go together this year. Me, Tio Michael, Uncle Theo, even Grandma Caroline if she can come. We could remember your mama together." Elena was quiet for a moment, processing. "Will it make you sad?" "Yes, but it's okay to be sad sometimes. Sadness is how we honor the people we love." "Tio Michael says the same thing." Elena closed her book, marking her place carefully. "I'd like that. For all of us to go together. Mama would like it too, I think. She'd be happy we're all family now." "I think you're right." "Grandma Victoria? Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think Mama knew, before she died? Do you think she knew we'd find each other?" Victoria's throat tightened. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I think she hoped. I think that's why she wrote me that letter. She believed that somehow, someday, we'd figure it out." "I'm glad we figured it out," Elena said simply. "I'm glad you found me at the cemetery that day." "Me too, baby. Me too." The weeks leading up to the anniversary were bittersweet. Theo flew in early, taking time off from his business. Caroline drove down from Boston. They gathered at Victoria's penthouse the night before, a strange collection of broken and mending people united by their love for Leah and Elena. Michael cooked dinner, a feast of Puerto Rican dishes that filled the apartment with warmth and the smell of home. They ate family style, passing dishes and sharing stories, and for the first time in years, Victoria's dining table felt alive. "Tell us about when Mama was little," Elena requested, looking at Victoria and Caroline. "What was she like?" Victoria and Caroline exchanged glances, then smiled. "She was stubborn," Victoria began. "Impossibly stubborn," Caroline agreed. "From the moment she could walk, she had opinions about everything. There was this one time," Victoria continued, "when she was about 5. We took her to a department store to buy shoes. The salesperson brought out these practical, sensible Mary Janes, but Leah spotted a pair of red cowboy boots and decided those were the only shoes she would ever wear." "She threw a fit?" Elena asked, delighted. "She sat down in the middle of the store and refused to move," Caroline said, laughing at the memory. "Just sat there with her arms crossed, saying, 'Red boots or no boots.'" "What did you do?" Victoria smiled. "I tried reasoning, bargaining, threatening. Nothing worked. Finally, Caroline just bought the red boots. And she wore them everywhere," Caroline added. "To school, to the playground, to fancy dinners. She wore them until they literally fell apart." "I have those boots," Theo said quietly. "I kept them after she died. They're in a box in my apartment." Elena's eyes went wide. "Really? Can I see them sometime?" "Next time you visit San Francisco, absolutely." The stories continued late into the night. Leah learning to ride a bike and refusing training wheels because they were for babies. Leah starting a neighborhood newspaper when she was 8 and charging a quarter for copies she hand-wrote and illustrated. Leah staying up all night to help Theo build a model solar system for his science project, her fingers covered in paint and glue. "She was always taking care of people," Michael said softly. "When I met her through Daniel, the first thing she did was ask about my family, my dreams, whether I was happy." She had this way of making you feel like you mattered. Daniel used to say she saw the best in everyone, Michael continued, even people who didn't see it in themselves. She believed people could change, could grow, could be better than they thought they were. Victoria felt the weight of those words. Leah had believed in second chances. She'd believed in redemption. And through Elena, she'd given Victoria both. The next morning dawned gray and cool, autumn settling over the city with gentle insistence. They drove to Greenwood Cemetery in 2 cars, Michael, Elena, and Victoria in one, Theo and Caroline in the other. Sunny came too, her leash held firmly by Elena, who'd insisted the dog was part of the family now and should be included. As they walked the familiar path to Section 7, Row 12, Plot 3, Victoria remembered that first morning a year ago. How shocked she'd been. How her world had tilted and reformed in the space of a heartbeat. The gravesite looked different now. Someone, Michael probably, had planted flowers around the headstone. They bloomed in cheerful defiance of the coming winter, purple and yellow and white. Elena immediately began arranging the fresh flowers they'd brought, Sunny sitting beside her like a patient guardian. The adults stood in a semicircle, each lost in their own memories and grief. "I'll start," Theo said finally. He stepped forward and placed his hand on the headstone. "Hey, Leah. I'm sorry it took me so long to come back. I was angry for a while. At Mom, at the world, at you for leaving, but I'm not angry anymore. You were right about everything, about choosing happiness over expectations, about building a life that matters. I'm trying to do that now, and I'm taking care of your daughter. We all are. You'd be proud of her, Lee. She's exactly like you, brave and kind and impossibly stubborn." His voice broke, and Caroline stepped forward to put an arm around him. She spoke next. "Leah, my beautiful girl, I'm sorry I wasn't there more. Sorry I chose my own comfort over your needs. You deserved better. But I'm here now, and I'm going to make sure Elena knows how amazing her mother was. I'm going to tell her all the stories, show her all the photos, keep your memory alive." Michael went next, his voice steady despite the tears on his face. "Leah, Daniel's with you now. I hope you're together watching over Elena. She's growing up so well. She has your creativity, your compassion, your ability to make people feel loved. Thank you for trusting me with her. I won't let you down." Then it was Victoria's turn. She stepped forward, her legs shaky, and knelt beside the headstone. She traced Leah's name with her finger, feeling the cold granite beneath her touch. "My darling girl," she whispered, "I failed you in life. I was too busy, too focused on things that didn't matter. I missed so much. Your happiness, your love, your daughter. I can't change that. I can't take back the years I wasted or the words I didn't say. But I can promise you this. I'm taking care of Elena. Not just financially, but really taking care of her. I'm showing up, I'm being present, I'm learning to be the grandmother you wanted me to be. And through her, I'm learning to be the mother I should have been to you." She paused, overcome with emotion. Elena slipped a small hand into hers, squeezing tight. "I love you, Leah," Victoria continued. "I always did, even when I was terrible at showing it. And I'm so grateful you left me, Elena. She's given me a reason to be better. A reason to change, a reason to finally understand what you were trying to tell me all along, that love matters more than success, that family matters more than empires, that showing up matters more than any achievement." Elena tugged on her hand. "Can I say something?" "Of course, sweetheart." The little girl stepped forward, Sunny beside her, and looked at her mother's headstone with the serious expression she got when something was important. "Hi, Mama. It's me, Elena. I'm 8 now, almost 8.5. I'm in 3rd grade and I have lots of friends, and I got an A on my book report about Charlotte's Web. That was your favorite book too," Grandma Victoria said. She paused, collecting her thoughts. "I don't remember you very much. Sometimes I think I do, but Theo Michael says those might be dreams mixed up with photos. But that's okay, because everyone tells me about you. Uncle Theo says you were brave. Grandma Caroline says you were creative. Grandma Victoria says you were stubborn. And Theo Michael says you were the kindest person he ever knew." Sunny whined softly, and Elena petted her absently. "I think you'd like my dog. Her name is Sunny because she's bright like sunshine. And I think you'd like our new house with the garden. And I think you'd be happy that Grandma Victoria found me, that we're all together now." She pulled something from her pocket, a piece of paper folded small. I made this for you. It's a drawing of all of us, see? There's me and Tio Michael and Grandma Victoria and Uncle Theo and Grandma Caroline and Sonny. And up here in the sky, I drew you and Papa. Watching us? Taking care of us from heaven. She placed the drawing at the base of the headstone, weighing it down with a smooth stone. I miss you, Mama. I wish I could have known you, but I'm okay. We're all okay, and we love you very, very much. There wasn't a dry eye among the adults. They stood together, this cobbled-together family, united in their grief and love and determination to honor Leah's memory by taking care of what she'd left behind. Should we say something together? Elena asked, like a prayer or something. What do you want to say? Victoria asked. Elena thought for a moment. How about, thank you for the love you gave us. We promise to take care of each other. We promise to remember. We promise to make you proud. They repeated the words together, their voices mingling and rising into the autumn air. When they finished, a breeze picked up, rustling the leaves and carrying the scent of flowers. Elena smiled. That's Mama saying she heard us, she said with absolute certainty. She knows we're together now. She's happy. Maybe she was right. Maybe Leah and Daniel were somewhere, somehow, seeing what their love had created. Not just Elena, but this entire extended, complicated, beautiful family that had formed around her. They stayed at the cemetery for another hour, talking and remembering. Theo and Michael discovered they both loved woodworking and spent 20 minutes discussing techniques and tools. Caroline and Victoria found themselves laughing over a memory of Leah's disastrous attempt to bake cookies for a school fundraiser. Elena played with Sonny, chasing butterflies and making flower chains. It was healing. It was holy. It was exactly what they all needed. As they prepared to leave, Victoria made an announcement. I have something to show you all, if you're willing to take a drive. Where are we going? Elena asked. You'll see. It's a surprise. They caravanned out of the city, heading north along the Hudson River. The drive took about an hour, winding through increasingly rural countryside painted in autumn colors. Finally, Victoria turned onto a private road lined with oak trees. At the end of the road sat a house. Not a mansion, though it was certainly large. Not a showplace, though it was beautiful. A real house. Stone and wood and glass, nestled into the hillside with views of the river and mountains beyond. It had a wraparound porch and a stone patio and gardens that looked like they'd been there forever. What is this place? Michael asked as they climbed out of the cars. It's ours, Victoria said simply. I bought it 3 months ago. It belonged to an artist who died and whose children wanted to sell quickly. I've been having it renovated. She led them up the front steps and opened the door. Inside, the house was warm and inviting. Hardwood floors, exposed beams, a massive fireplace in the living room. The kitchen was huge and modern, with a long table that could easily seat 12. Upstairs, there were 6 bedrooms, each with its own character and charm. But the most spectacular feature was the back of the house. Floor-to-ceiling windows opened onto a deck that overlooked a lake. The water was calm and reflective, mirroring the sky and trees. A dock extended into the water and a wooden swing hung from an enormous oak tree at the water's edge. This is beautiful, Caroline breathed. But Victoria, why did you buy this? Victoria looked at Elena, who was pressing her face against the windows, awestruck. Because Leah drew this house. Not this exact house, but close. Do you remember, Theo, that architectural drawing she did senior year? Her dream house, she called it. A place by the water where family could gather, where there was space to breathe and grow and just be. I remember, Theo said softly. She got an award for that design. I found the original sketch in her room, and when this place came on the market, I knew it was meant to be. Victoria walked over to Elena and knelt beside her. This is for all of us, sweetheart. A place where we can come together. Where Michael can have his own space, but doesn't have to do everything alone. Where Theo can visit and have a real home base on the East Coast. Where Caroline can come and not feel like she's intruding on anyone. Where you can run and play and swim and just be a kid. We can live here? Elena's voice was small with wonder. Michael will live here full time if he wants. I'll visit on weekends. Everyone else will come as often as they can. But yes, this will be home. Real home. For all of us. Michael shook his head in disbelief. Victoria, this is too much. We can't accept. Yes, you can, Victoria said firmly, because this isn't charity. This is family. This is me finally understanding what Leah tried to teach me, that the best thing you can build isn't a company or a fortune. It's a home, a place where people feel safe and loved and connected. She pulled out a set of keys and handed them to Elena. What do you say, sweetheart? Should we accept Grandma Victoria's gift? Elena looked at Michael, who was clearly struggling with emotion. Theo, can we stay here? Really stay? Michael knelt down and pulled her into a hug. Yeah, mija, we can stay. Elena squealed and threw her arms around Victoria. Thank you, Grandma Victoria. Thank you, thank you, thank you. They spent the rest of the day exploring the house. Elena claimed a bedroom with a window seat overlooking the lake. Theo discovered a workshop in the basement, perfectly equipped for woodworking. Caroline found a sunroom that would be perfect for the painting she'd recently taken up. Michael stood on the deck for a long time, just staring at the water, overwhelmed by the magnitude of change in his life. Victoria found him there as the sun began to set. Are you okay? She asked. I'm terrified, he admitted. This is so far beyond anything I imagined. A year ago, I was working 2 jobs and barely scraping by. Now I have a good job, a brownstone in Brooklyn, and a lake house that's nicer than anything I've ever dreamed of. What if I wake up and it's all gone? It's not going anywhere, Victoria said firmly. The house is in a trust, for Elena's future. You're named as the trustee and have lifetime residence rights. Even if something happened to me tomorrow, this would still be here. This is permanent, Michael. Why are you doing all this? Because Leah asked me to. In her letter, she asked me to be part of her daughter's life, to help, to be family. I'm just late in fulfilling her request. You're doing more than helping. You're changing our entire lives. You changed mine, Victoria said quietly. You could have kept Elena hidden, could have refused to let me into your lives, could have been angry and bitter about the past. But you gave me a chance. You let me try. And in doing so, you gave me back my family. Gave me Theo, gave me Caroline, gave me purpose beyond profit. You gave me Elena. Michael was quiet for a moment. Daniel would have liked you, eventually, after he got over being intimidated. I wish I could have met him. Could have told him thank you for loving my daughter, for giving her the happiness I never could. You're giving his daughter everything he wanted for her, security, family, opportunities. He'd be grateful. Inside, they could hear Elena laughing as Theo chased her with Sonny barking excitedly. Caroline was in the kitchen making hot chocolate, humming something soft and melodic. This is what Leah wanted, Victoria said. All of us together, taking care of each other. Yeah, Michael agreed. This is exactly what she wanted. The next few months passed in a blur of change and adjustment. Michael officially moved into the lake house in November, with Elena starting at a new school nearby. It was harder than expected, new friends to make, new routines to establish. But Elena adapted with the resilience Victoria had come to expect from her. Victoria split her time between her penthouse for foundation work and the lake house on weekends. She found herself looking forward to Friday afternoons with an anticipation she'd never felt for any business meeting. The drive upstate became a meditation, a transition from CEO mode to grandmother mode. Theo visited for Thanksgiving and stayed through Christmas, working from the workshop Michael had helped him set up. He started taking commissions for custom furniture, pieces that married his California aesthetic with East Coast sensibility. One of his tables sold for $15,000 to a collector in Manhattan, and he called Victoria, stunned. I'm actually making a living at this, he said, a real living, doing what I love. I'm proud of you, Victoria told him. Leah would be too. Caroline came for Christmas week, and they had their first family holiday in over a decade. The house filled with the smell of cooking, with laughter and music, and the sound of Elena practicing carols on the piano Victoria had installed in the music room. On Christmas morning, Elena insisted they video call Mrs. Chen so she could see all the presents. The elderly woman teared up at the sight of Elena in her new home, surrounded by family. You did good, Michael, Mrs. Chen said. You did real good. The foundation flourished beyond Victoria's expectations. By the end of the year, they'd helped over 100 families, providing everything from emergency rent assistance to counseling services to educational support. Michael had become the face of the foundation in many ways, his story resonating with other struggling guardians. He did interviews, spoke at fundraisers, helped design programs based on his own experience. Watching him blossom into this confident, articulate advocate, Victoria felt a pride that rivaled anything she'd felt in her corporate career. "You're a natural at this," she told him after a particularly moving speech to potential donors. "I'm just telling the truth about how hard it is, about how much difference support makes, about how families come in all shapes and sizes." He smiled. "You taught me that being vulnerable isn't weakness, that asking for help is brave. You taught me something too, that love is a verb, that showing up is more important than showing off, that the best investment you can make is in people." Winter melted into spring, and the lake house property came alive with color. Elena helped plant a garden, her small hands in the dirt alongside Michael's and Victoria's. They planted vegetables and flowers, creating beauty and sustenance in equal measure. Theo surprised them all by announcing he was moving back to New York permanently. "I can build furniture anywhere," he said, "but family is here, and I've missed too much already. I don't want to miss any more." He took one of the bedrooms in the lake house as his permanent residence, converting the workshop into his business headquarters. Within weeks, he had a waiting list of clients wanting his pieces. Caroline visited monthly, her relationship with Elena growing deeper each time. She taught Elena to paint, passing on the artistic talent that had skipped Victoria but bloomed in Leah. They spent hours in the sunroom together, Elena working on her colorful, imaginative pieces, while Caroline created her own work beside her. "I'm trying to make up for lost time," Caroline confessed to Victoria one evening. "With Elena, with Theo, with you even." "We all are," Victoria said. "That's what second chances are for." In April, on what would have been Leah's 34th birthday, they released balloons at the lake. Elena had written messages on each one, wishes and memories and expressions of love. They watched the balloons rise into the spring sky, carrying their words to wherever Leah was. "Do you think she can read them?" Elena asked. "I think she knows what's in our hearts," Victoria said. And that's enough. May brought Elena's 9th birthday, and with it, a party that filled the lake house with children and chaos and joy. Elena had real friends now, kids who knew about her past but didn't define her by it. They swam in the lake, played with Sunny, ate cake until they were sick, and made memories that would last. Watching Elena blow out her candles, Victoria thought about how much had changed in 2 years. How a chance encounter at a cemetery had completely redirected her life. How choosing to stay instead of walking away had given her everything she'd never known she was missing. Summer settled over the property like a blessing. They established new traditions. Friday night dinners where everyone cooked together. Saturday morning swims in the lake. Sunday afternoon game sessions that grew competitive and loud. The house that had seemed too big at first now felt perfectly sized for their expanding family. Dr. Chen closed Elena's case in June, citing a stable, loving home environment with extensive family support. Michael cried when he got the call, overwhelmed with relief that the threat of losing Elena was finally, truly over. "We did it," he told Victoria. "We actually did it." "You did it," she corrected. "I just helped. We did it together. All of us. That's what family means." In July, Victoria made a decision she'd been considering for months. She called a family meeting, gathering everyone in the living room on a hot Sunday afternoon. "I have an announcement," she said once they were all settled. "I'm dissolving my involvement with Hale Global completely, selling my remaining shares and stepping down from the board. The foundation is enough. This family is enough. I don't need anything else." "Are you sure?" Theo asked. "That company was your life for 40 years. "It was my life," Victoria agreed. "Past tense. Now I have a better life. Now I have all of you." Elena jumped up and hugged her. "Does this mean you'll be here more? All the time?" "Yes, sweetheart. All the time. This is my home now." Michael looked at Victoria seriously. "You know, this means you'll have to learn to cook actual meals, right? I can't do all the cooking forever." "I'll learn," Victoria promised. "I've learned plenty of other new things. Why not cooking?" Caroline laughed. "This I have to see. Victoria Hale in an apron." "Mock me all you want," Victoria said with dignity. "I'll have you know I successfully made scrambled eggs last week without burning them." "Progress," Theo deadpanned. "Definitely progress." They laughed together, this mismatched, broken, beautifully healing family, and Victoria felt a happiness so complete it took her breath away. As summer faded into autumn and they approached the second anniversary of that first meeting at the cemetery, Victoria began planning something special. She worked in secret with Michael and Theo, preparing a surprise for Elena. On October 14th, they gathered at the cemetery again, but this time they came prepared. They'd arranged with the cemetery to plant an oak tree near Leah's grave, a living memorial that would grow and endure. At the base of the tree, they placed a bench with a plaque that read, "In memory of Leah Hale and Daniel Ruiz, beloved parents, their love lives on." Elena helped plant the tree, her small hands patting the soil carefully. "Now Mama and Papa have a tree," she said softly, "like the one at our house, so they can watch over everyone who visits." After the ceremony, they didn't linger in sadness. Instead, they drove back to the lake house and spent the afternoon celebrating life. They cooked together, ate together, laughed together. They looked through photo albums, telling stories of Leah and Daniel, keeping their memories alive and vibrant. As evening fell, they gathered on the deck overlooking the lake. Elena sat on Victoria's lap, drowsy and content, with Sunny's head on her feet. Michael and Theo were discussing a joint project, a custom bookshelf for Elena's room with hidden compartments for treasures. Caroline was sketching the sunset, trying to capture the exact colors of the sky. "Grandma Victoria," Elena said sleepily, "are you happy?" The question was simple but profound. Was she happy? Victoria Hale, who'd spent 40 years chasing success and power and achievement, who'd sacrificed everything for her career, who'd lost her daughter because she'd been too busy to listen? "Yes, baby," she said, pulling Elena closer. "I'm happier than I've ever been." "Me too," Elena murmured. "I wish Mama and Papa were here, but I'm really, really happy." "They are here," Victoria said, "in you, in all of us. In every moment we choose love over everything else." Elena nodded, her eyes drifting closed. "That's what Mama would have wanted, for us to choose love." "Yes," Victoria whispered, "that's exactly what she would have wanted." She looked around at her family, Michael laughing at something Theo said, Caroline adding final touches to her sketch, Sunny twitching in her sleep, Elena breathing softly against her chest. This was what mattered. This was what lasted, not corporate empires or stock portfolios or awards and accolades. This, just this. The sky blazed with color as the sun set over the lake, painting everything in shades of gold and rose. Victoria closed her eyes and sent a silent thank you to Leah. "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for leaving me, Elena. Thank you for teaching me, even in death, what I failed to learn in life. That love was the only thing worth building. That family was the only empire that mattered. That showing up was the greatest achievement of all." The breeze picked up, carrying the scent of water and earth and the last flowers of summer. Somewhere, somehow, Victoria felt certain that Leah and Daniel were smiling. Their daughter was loved. Their families were healed. Their legacy lived on. And in the gathering twilight, surrounded by the people who mattered most, Victoria Hale finally understood what it meant to be wealthy, not in money or power, but in the things that actually counted, in second chances, in forgiveness, in the daily choice to show up and be present and love without reservation. She'd lost years, she'd made terrible mistakes, she'd failed in ways that couldn't be undone, but she'd also been given the rarest of gifts, a chance to try again, a chance to be better, a chance to finally get it right. Elena stirred in her arms, murmuring something in her sleep. Victoria held her closer, this precious child who'd saved her in ways the little girl would never fully understand. This living proof that even the worst mistakes could lead to redemption if you were brave enough to face them. "I love you," Victoria whispered, kissing the top of Elena's head. "I love all of you." And as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, reflected perfectly in the still water of the lake, Victoria Hale knew with absolute certainty that she had finally built something that would last. Not a company that would eventually be sold or dismantled, but a family that would endure. A love that would outlive them all. Leah's dream had come true. Not the way anyone had expected, not through the path anyone had planned, but beautifully and completely nonetheless. They were together. They were healing. They were home. And that, Victoria thought, as she watched the first stars appear, was the greatest